Good morning, everyone. This is the public hearing and public meeting of the Committee of the Whole regarding bills numbers 250195, 250196, 250197, 250198, 250199, 250200, 250201, 250202, 250210, 250211, 250212, and resolution number 250214. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the roll to take attendance, please?
Councilmember Squilla. Councilmember Gautier. Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Young. Councilmember Driscoll. Councilmember Lozada. Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Phillips. Councilmember O'Neill. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Harity. Councilmember Ahmad. Councilmember Landau. Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember O'Rourke. Council President Johnson.
Present. The quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. Ms. Lawhead, would you please read the title of the resolutions?
Bill number 250195, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Tax by revising certain tax rates under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250196, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2026. Bill number 250197, an ordinance to adopt a fiscal 2026 capital budget. Bill number 250198, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2026 through 2031 inclusive. Bill number 250199, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-2600 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Business Income and Receipts Taxes to revise certain tax rates and end certain exclusions from the tax on receipts, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250200, an ordinance amending Chapter 12100, the Philadelphia Code entitled Traffic Code to revise the fee for the use of parking meters, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250201, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1800 of the Philadelphia Code entitled School Tax Authorization to provide for an increase in the tax that the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia is authorized to impose on real estate, and amending Chapter 19-1300 entitled Real Estate Taxes to establish an equivalent reduction in the tax rate for the city real estate tax, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250202, an ordinance amending Section 19-1806 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax to eliminate certain exemptions, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250210, an ordinance amending Section 101001 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fees of Commissioner of Records to increase the portion of fees for the recording of deeds and mortgages and relating documents to be used for housing trust fund purposes under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250211, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Realty Transfer Tax by revising the rate of the tax, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 250212, an ordinance to amend Chapter 19-4400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Development Impact Tax to end imposition of the tax under certain terms and conditions. Resolution number 250214, resolution providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2026 through 2030 and incorporating revisions with respect to fiscal year 2025, which is to be submitted by the Mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority pursuant to an intergovernmental cooperation agreement by and between the City and the Authority.
Today, we will hold the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole to consider the bills read by the clerk that constitute proposed operating and capital spending measures for fiscal year 2026, a capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2031. This morning, we have scheduled testimony from the Chief Administrative Office, Office of Human Resources, Office of Innovation and Technology, and Procurement. Given the overlap in these departments' responsibilities, all departments will be available for questioning following testimony from Chief Administrative Officer Camille Duche. Okay. This afternoon, we have scheduled testimony from the Department of Human Services and the Mayor's Office of Education. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the first witness to testify from the administration?
Camille Duche, Chief Administrative Officer.
morning. Is that good?
Yeah, good morning. Just state your name and please begin your testimony.
Good morning. Members of Council President Johnson, members of City Council, and colleagues, I am Camille Duchaussé, Chief Administrative Officer. Joining me today from the Office of the CAO are Rose Smith DeFrancesco, Chief of Staff, Melissa Andre, Executive Director of the Office of Administrative Review, Adrian Moore, Director of the Office for People with Disabilities, Andrew Buss, Deputy CAO, Stephanie Reed, Deputy CAO, Carol DeFries, Executive Director, City College for Municipal Employment and Workforce Planning, Shakia Foreman, Employee Ombudsperson, Danita Reese, Director of the Philadelphia Service Design Studio, Tracy Bryant, Deputy Director of the Office of Talent and Employee Success, and Sandy Ramos, SEPTA Key Advantage Program Manager. I'm also joined by commissioners of CAO's cluster departments, Candy Jones, Chief Human Resource Officer, Melissa Scott, Chief Information Officer, LaShonda Tompkins, Deputy Procurement Commissioner, and Ronald Hovey, Procurement Commissioner, Day 12, and James Leonard, Records Commissioner, who will provide testimony as well. The FY26 budget for the Office of the CAO is critical to fulfilling the promise of our office and realizing the efficiency, innovation, and transformation necessary to make Philadelphia the safest, cleanest, and greenest big city in the nation with access to economic opportunity for all. Through strategic investments in workforce development, service delivery, accessibility, and operational efficiency, and in support of departments with whom CAO partners to provide enterprise-wide administrative support, which are again, OHR, OIT, procurement, and records, we are committed to strengthening city government and ensuring it works effectively. In the past year, we realized a first in the nation and significant initiative, the City College for Municipal Employment. CCME is a crucial driver in the city's workforce development strategy, coordinating internal and external training programs and resources to access and develop the talent of Philadelphians and city employees, remove barriers to employment, create clear pathways to municipal careers that offer family-sustaining wages, and build workforce capacity and economic mobility by ensuring that Philadelphians are equipped with the skills needed for the jobs of today and the future. By investing in CCME, we not only strengthen our city's workforce, but also foster economic mobility for residents across all communities. The work of the Service Design Studio and the Strategic Direction and Transformation Units will continue to prioritize the assessment, development, improvement, and innovation of resident services and the operations of every department. The ongoing work of Executive Order 224, prioritizing and improving resident service delivery, as well as the successful implementation of CRMs for the Office of Neighborhood and Community Engagement, the Office of Minority Business Success, and the Mayor's Office, and the creation of a Lactation Space Finder app are examples of the improvements and work of this group. Employee Engagement and Infrastructure Unit and the Office of Talent and Employee Success are dedicated to fostering a workplace culture that supports and engages our employees. Through target internal communication and professional development, like the Elevate Leadership Excellence Program, these units have worked to improve alignment between city leadership and our workforce, ensuring that employees are informed and empowered in their roles, and operational decision-making is informed by engagement with the city's workforce. In FY26, we will expand initiatives that support employee well-being, professional development, and workplace inclusivity. The Office for People with Disabilities will continue to build upon the city's commitment to accessibility, ensuring that Philadelphia is a city where all residents can realize their potential and take advantage of all that Philadelphia has to offer. An example of their work being the creation of the Assistive Device Tagging Program, which ensures Philadelphia residents are able to retrieve their needed devices when separated from its owner during medical emergencies. And the Office of Administrative Review has improved hearing times and will be able to further modernize with FY26 budget commitments, making it easier for Philadelphians to navigate administrative hearings with fairness and efficiency. To ensure that the city government operates with efficiency, accountability, and fiscal responsibility, the FY26 budget request includes the resources necessary to establish an internal control and optimization unit to focus on identifying operational inefficiencies, improving accountability, and implementing compliance best practices across departments. By strengthening internal controls and optimizing workflows, we will enhance service delivery, reduce costs, and improve the overall effectiveness of city government. I am proud of the work of the CAO and its partner departments and ask that City Council support the proposed budget. Without question, the work of CAO, OHR, OIT, OPD, Procurement, and Records supports every department and directly impacts the efficiency, transparency, and effectiveness of city government. We endeavor to strengthen operations, invest in our workforce, and drive innovation needed to make Philadelphia a model of public service. With the necessary resources, we will continue working toward becoming an employer of choice and a government that residents can truly see, touch, and feel. One that is responsive, equitable, and built to serve every Philadelphian. I appreciate your time today, and along with my colleagues, welcome any questions you may have. I also invite and ask Carol DeFries, our Executive Director of CCME, to provide some opening comments on CCME. Sorry.
Just testing. Okay, great. Good morning, Council President Johnson, members of City Council, staff, and colleagues. I'm Carol DeFries. I'm the Executive Director of the City College for Municipal Employment and Workforce Programming. The Mayor's vision and standards for the City College for Municipal Employment are clear: to be a first-in-the-nation workforce model that will increasingly open pathways to training, development, and career opportunities that poise all Philadelphians to work, serve, and thrive in all areas of the economy, particularly critical areas of need within our city. In a short time, CCME has leveraged resources and partnerships with the Big Four: the City, Community College of Philadelphia, the School District of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia Works, all to bring opportunities for economic mobility to its residents. Understanding CCME as a broad umbrella, combining CCME and Commerce's OWD, the Office of Workforce Development, within CAO to ensure coordinated strategy, knowledge, and resources is very important. The FY 2026 funding and position allocations will allow our combined team to shift our lens on workforce across the internal and external landscape to an enterprise-wide workforce leadership strategy and implementation unit. The Mayor's vision for the City College for Municipal Employment includes a well-coordinated workforce ecosystem that is poised to understand the vast needs of the city enterprise as the third largest employer in the city of Philadelphia, the broader workforce needs of Philadelphia's economy, and the major initiatives and investments that the city brings to bear that can drive workforce needs across key sectors. The unit will be able to identify shared resource opportunities and gaps in strategy. It will continue to foster and grow partnerships essential to maximizing internal and external investments in workforce development across Philadelphia. I assure you that the work of the Office of Workforce Development and Commerce will continue. OWD is dedicated to supporting employers and their talent needs and will continue to manage those efforts and more, including supporting Commerce's Fair Chance Hiring Initiative, the Workforce Development Professionals Alliance, a network of 24 quality workforce organizations in the city, and the C2L PHL plans for employer engagements. The unit will also support the deployment of $10 million in workforce funding, which will be focused on external workforce initiatives and investments and removing barriers to opportunities for life-sustaining jobs in the construction and building trades, the life sciences and STEM, and grow both existing and new partnerships with external workforce partners such as WIPSI, Sam Staten Senior Pre-Apprenticeship, SEIU, the Center for Black Educator Development, among others, and employers across Philadelphia, particularly those receiving KOZ benefits. The significance and impact of delivering on the Mayor's promise on workforce is why I joined the Parker administration and cannot be overstated. We, the full team, look forward to working with City Council and our many partners to strengthen and grow the city's workforce, which supports all aspects of realizing a safer, cleaner, greener city with access to economic opportunity for all Philadelphians. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I just want to get an idea regarding the transferring of the Commerce Department for the workforce program under the Office of Chief Administrative Office, just get an idea of the reasoning behind the transfer. And then how are you integrating that workforce program with other workforce programs throughout the city of Philadelphia since it's going to be under CAO?
So the idea, as Carol mentioned, is really for CCME, and it's the Office of CCME and Workforce Planning, right? And it's to capture all workforce development work that's being done across the city. One thing that we very early on recognized as we were trying to stand up CCME and make sure that workforce development work was moving as efficiently as possible was that there were a lot of great work that's being done across the city in departments that, if coordinated, I think would have improved outcomes. We have great outcomes with a number of our partners, Streets Department and their Future Track program, what's going on with Fleet. There are a lot of great programming that's going on, but the consolidation of it, definitely the centralization of it, without impacting its current effectiveness, was a significant goal of CCME. Now, when you pull back and you look at the work that was being done in commerce in coordination with their external partners, a lot of external partners, we were tapping a number of the same external partners. And so the idea behind pulling the Office of Workforce Development into the CCME and Workforce Planning Office was just to change the perspective, to make sure that we are taking a higher level view. We are seeing where there are opportunities for partnership. We are seeing where we can, with the economy of scale, can be employed. And also we can recognize where there are gaps. We certainly have a very bold vision here of making sure that all Philadelphians have an opportunity and that we are creating economic mobility across the city in all communities. But there are gaps in that. And in changing our focus and putting the two together so that we can see across all of the work that's being done, not only in the city, but in our partnerships external to the city, I think we have better outcomes.
So now it'll be housed in the CAO. And in terms of commerce, because I know when commerce just came here last week, when we kicked off the 5-year plan, they talked about their role with workforce development, making sure we're addressing the vacancies, going out into the community, doing the job fairs, having the mobile, they have a mobile employment bus that goes throughout the city that hopefully we'll have 10 of them in each councilmatic district so we can kind of speed up erasing poverty here in the city of Philadelphia. But so are there 2 tracks they're going to be moving, or are you going to be over top of all of it now under CAO?
Right, so we're over the top,
Okay.
but there are 2 tracks, right?
That's where I'm
the
going.
work of the Office of Workforce Development that has been housed in Commerce, that work continues. We're a client of theirs, just like there are a number of other parties, Commerce being one of them, is a client of that unit. And so that work doesn't change. I think the benefit here is that we can blend resources. We can, again, leverage its multiplication by addition, right? Where you're adding to a department and you're leveraging across that entire department all of the resources that we have.
Okay. Cool.
I don't know,
Now,
if Carol, if you want to say anything else to that.
Happy to. I think that I just would say from personal experience, and since I started, I've been working very closely with the Office of Workforce Development basically on a daily basis. And so the workforce ecosystem is very tied to one another. So everything that we would be doing internally is also tied to what happens externally. And so it was very clear through that process that we had to be in constant coordination regarding any investments that we were making internally in the city to support the hiring needs of the city of Philadelphia, in addition to what was going on externally. And in fact, like one of my first experiences was how we could work across multiple departments and the external partners to submit a proposal to the William Penn Foundation, because there were multiple of the same needs that we needed to coordinate in that submission. So it was very clear that their work needs to be at a higher level, looking across both internal and external employer needs, plus the city as an employer, and what our needs are as well.
Now, part of the budget process for this year for CAO is $300,000 for software for your databases. Can you just give us an idea? That's your largest actually request. So, and I think upgrading technology is a good thing. But just give us an update for the record on how that's going to be utilized, please.
Absolutely. So less an update of technology, but a continuation of the technology that we're in this contracts that we're using right now, which are Qualtrics, which is a kind of a survey platform that allows us to engage our employees in a multitude of ways. Our Quick Base program is the program that allows us to take manual processes within different departments and digitize them. And over the course of FY25, I believe there were 15 different projects that we took on, to include some of the ones mentioned in my opening testimony, to create apps that better utilize and take in information in a more efficient way for different departmental partners. And then lastly, we have Invisio, which is a project tracking tool that we have used to, again, gauge the work and ongoing work, track and hold accountable ourselves, the work that we're doing in service improvement. So any project that we have relative to service delivery improvement is put in Invisio, and it allows us to track and communicate with our partners, our departmental partners.
Okay, thank you. Our data also shows that minority, women, disabled businesses, participants rates dropped from 40% in FY24 to 27% in FY25. So can you give us an update on the reasons for the declines and also measures being taken on to make sure we're addressing equity when it comes to contracting services? Because, you know, obviously we're the largest poor city in America. In order for us to erase that moniker, we have to make sure we're building generational wealth and making sure the process is equitable in terms of everybody having a chance to participate, and it also reflects what the city of Philadelphia looks like in terms of our business practices.
I'm going to turn to our very new Procurement Commissioner, Ronald Hovey, but before doing that, I do want to kind of share your sentiments, right, that we have some work to do. And one of the things that we are very much keyed in on is the work that we've been doing in concert with Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson's office in terms of improving the way the procurement process works. We are very clear that the administrative burdens of contracting with the city of Philadelphia has a disparate impact on some of our smaller and minority-owned, disabled enterprise owners have with the city of Philadelphia. So we're working very diligently to make sure that, to the extent that across the board we are creating easier systems, less administrative burden, less costly, taking less of a toll on working with the city of Philadelphia, that we're making improvements in that space. I'll also say that by and large, the work of monitoring and assessing and prescribing participation rates is not the work of the procurement department, but under the Office of
OEO.
Business Impact, yes. OEO rests within the Office of Business Impact and Economic Growth. And so that is a space where we partner with them, and I don't believe that there's anyone here from that office today to speak directly to the participation rates, but I will turn it over very briefly to.
But you would know practices in terms of what you're doing to improve them, correct?
I'm sorry.
I said, but you would have practices on how you're going to go about improving them, correct?
Yes.
Because OEO would just monitor the number, but I would think if y'all talking together, I
Absolutely.
would think there would be a game plan and say, hey, these numbers aren't increasing for black and brown women-owned businesses. We're actually going backwards. And I would think an alarm would set off and say, whoa, 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 we're not moving aggressively forward
Yeah,
in
so
this area.
and agreed. And I think one of the things that I'm particularly aware of is that we've taken a step back and looked at, hey, what have been our challenges, our successes relative to our movement in that regard. And I think that was a major impetus for, not I think, I know that was a major impetus for how we've structured that space. And so right now we do have, again, a fairly new appointee to the Office of Business Impact and Economic Growth. That person will drive our efforts in making sure that that is Nadir Jones. I actually think that I've seen him in the hearing room today, but again, he started yesterday. So,
Okay, all right, understood.
but he will have a very particular role in driving our efforts in that regard.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Camille. So I'm Ron Hovey from the Procurement Department. I'm the new commissioner. Today's my 12th day.
Oh, congratulations, welcome.
Thank you. And I come here also with my colleagues, LaShonda Tompkins, she's my deputy for administration, and Janira Barroso, she's my deputy for services, supplies, and equipment in public works. So in answer to your question, as Camille said, OEO is it's my understanding, and the way the operation is set up, that it's a separate organization. And by the way, Nadir just caught me this morning. We've met a few times now, and he and I talked about getting together to discuss this very issue. So, based on my sort of time in the seat, I don't have direct prescriptions today, but I can tell you, it's important for those two organizations, and historically, sort of the outward-facing business diversity function is either within or very closely adjacent to procurement organizations. So I think historically it may have been more at arm's length, but I would like to see that work much more closely. Also, there may be some variation in terms of reality versus data captured, because I've seen that there's a fair amount of sort of manual effort in collecting and aggregating this data. So I'm looking forward to some of the new systems that are coming in place to increase the veracity of the data, so that we can make much. I'm very data driven, so I want to make much more sort of data informed decisions. That's basically it.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. We will definitely find time in the near future that you get your legs under you to readdress this issue, as well as with the new appointee for, I guess it's the Office of, you'll call it Diversity and Business Impact, or can you say it for the record, the new position?
Business Impact and Economic Growth.
Economic growth. So there is no more Office of Equal Opportunity. OEO will be?
The Office of Economic Opportunity will be built underneath, will be folded into the broader umbrella.
Cool. I think I'm familiar with that.
It's not going away.
Okay, that approach, cool. Just because the climate right now that we're in, right, and some folks trying to roll back the hands of time, and so if we're not on the front line addressing this in a diligent manner and being very, very intentional, but I also have to be quite frank, even if we wasn't in this climate, right, we're the poorest city in America, largest city, and the only way we're going to address the disparities that we see in the city of Philadelphia is by being very, very intentional about making sure that black and brown and women-owned businesses have a seat at the table. And so, however we can be partners in that mission, we're here. But I just want to go on the record and say we need to be laser-like focused on eradicating poverty by providing opportunities for small black and brown and women-owned businesses. Last question before I go to my colleagues. Very popular program here in City Council, which is the SEPTA Key program. Their program is going to be moving from,
It's a lot of money.
the CAO office to the Office of Human Resources, but at a different funding level. And so I want to get an idea of, over the last 2 years, the program cost the city $9 million, and now it's costing $5 million. So I just want to kind of get clarity on if this reflects a change in number of employees served or service level, or does it better reflect the actual need of the actual program?
So I would say, first of all, the move makes a lot of sense, right? Our Office of Human Resources does a phenomenal job with managing our employees' benefits and their total rewards package, and this is very much in alignment with that, making sure that the benefits that our employees enjoy are sitting within our benefits unit in OHR. Right now, we are still in conversations with SEPTA. The funding, again, I think is commensurate with our need. And as we move forward, we will continue to provide this very, very necessary benefit, very worthwhile benefit to all of our workforce. That has not changed. Our commitment to that has not changed. Again, we do understand and appreciate the ability to put more dollars in the pockets of our workforce, and we're committed to that.
Okay, because the interns in city council, this is a very, very popular program.
Across the city, it's a very popular program, yes.
No, on a serious note, and then I'm just going to take a matter of personal privilege for Councilmember Harity, O'Rourke, or Jones. Any points of information at this moment regarding the SEPTA Key program before I start calling on members? Member Jones, and this was actually your baby, sir, so Member Jones.
It's our baby, and I would want to know, does it just deal with city employees now? And does it deal with quasi-governmental employees as well, such as the Defenders Association? Is that included?
I will ask Sandy Ramos, our program, SEPTA Key program manager, to come up in response to specifically who it covers. But the SEPTA Key program is specific to the city's workforce, employees within the city of Philadelphia, to make a distinction between the Zero Fare program, which is a program that our city residents can benefit from.
So the Defenders have to go back and forth to State Road to defend citizens that are accused of crimes. And they're underpaid. And I said that, I know she's watching somewhere. They're underpaid. One of the perks is that they can get to their clients back and forth. And so the distinction between them not being a proper city department and being a nonprofit is one only made in our structure, not in the minds of the public. So I wanted the specifics of that.
Good morning, Sandy Ramos, Project Manager, SEPTA Key Advantage. So to answer your question, Councilman, contractors are not currently participating in this program. There are a number of contracted agencies who work alongside city employees. The Defenders Association is one of those, but there are a few. And so because of that, we would be opening the door to a pretty significant population. And so at the moment, it is limited specifically to city employees.
Well, that's something I think we should address. The Defenders Association takes on 44,000 accused. You remember that, right? 44,000 accused individuals a year, many of them who are incarcerated up on State Road. And with the differential between what they make versus the DA versus the city solicitor's office, it's a small perk for them to not have to go in their pockets to see their own clients. So I would, and I know that's not your decision, but I'm encouraging my colleagues to think about that if justice is to be done, we can't price out the Defenders Association from being effective at their jobs. So what other contracting agencies are not included? Do you have a list of them?
So I think it's easier to flip it. The benefit right now is availed to city employees, not contractors. And so any agency, organization with whom we contract that support the work of the city of Philadelphia, we are not currently availing the SEPTA Key Advantage program to that group.
Okay. So we need to take a look, we need to do our job and take a look at who is not included, who we consider essential partners. Essential partners. And I don't know, I remember quasi-governmental agencies, is it the Redevelopment Authority or PHDC, and people that we partner with that go out into the communities every day to provide those services that might be the difference between someone losing an employee because, you know what, this isn't just worth it to me. In light of all of the vacancies we have, this is a perk. This is a benefit that I think should be expanded to maintain our workforce. So.
And we're happy to continue having conversations. Again, we're sitting here because it's a budget conversation, right? And to the extent that we are able to leverage the budget that is made available to us to improve the efficiency and partnerships that we have, we will. But at the same time, we understand that this is a benefit that has a substantial cost associated with it, and we are doing everything in our power to make sure that we can continue to provide this very necessary, very worthwhile benefit to our workforce.
So some years ago, we subcontracted out DHS's responsibility to CUAs. These individuals perform the same basic services that social workers used to perform, but now are quasi-contractors. It does not make sense to me. We're being penny-wise, and in my opinion, pound-foolish if we don't recognize the high degree of turnover that can happen when the little things, not the mountain you have to climb, but the pebbles that get in your sandals on the way up the mountain. So we might want to take a look at all of those subcontractors to see if it makes sense in order to reduce turnover, to include that benefit. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, let's rock and roll. Member O'Rourke and then Member Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for allowing this moment just to clarify. I hear that there is the budget reduction on this point. I think I understand why that's the case. Just clarifying, you are affirming that this key program and benefit will continue for all, at least currently eligible employees in FY26 and beyond.
Correct, for FY26.
Oh, but not necessarily beyond. You can say for
The
FY26.
intention is to continue it beyond, but again, year after year, we...
Understood. Is anyone going to, considering the budget reduction, is anyone going to lose or be cut out of this benefit?
Is anyone going to leave? I'm sorry, I missed the word.
Is anyone going to be cut from this benefit, due to the budget cut? Will anyone lose this as a result of this budget cut? Anybody at all?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Real quick point of information. Councilmember Bass.
To follow up on Councilmember Jones' line of questioning, and as he was speaking, it dawned on me, how so many folks who have the SEPTA Key card may not need it. We have access to it, but may not need it. And there are some people who really need it and who do not have access. I would be more than willing to give my SEPTA Key card to, a public defender, and I think, my colleagues as well. But I think as you're looking at the program and looking at where to make cuts, you have to look at who's getting it and who doesn't need it and who needs it and isn't getting it. And even if they're not if they're a contracted agency like the Public Defender's Office, they're doing a city service. They may not be a full city agency or a full city department, but they are certainly doing a very valuable service for the citizens of the city of Philadelphia. And so there's got to start being some equity there and with other departments. So as we, just look at, how these funds are spent, I just think we need to be mindful of, who's already got it and, who really needs it. So thank you, Mr. President.
Agreed.
Member Hardy, and then we'll go into rounds.
Thank you, Council President. Just real quick, since you brought it up, zero fair. how many actual citizens are going to be affected by this? How many actually signed up for the program? And what was the cost of that? Because we really haven't even finished the pilot yet, and this program's being cut, and it's just one more thing we're taking away from people who probably need it the most. So if you could just give me some numbers just for points of information there.
So council member, I would be happy to get back to you on that. Zero Fare is not a program that's under the purview of the CAO, but absolutely can get you that information.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Okay, we're going into official round one. The chair recognizes Councilmember Phillips.
Thank you, Council President. OHR has committed to collaborating with HR offices across departments to improve transaction accuracy and efficiency. What mechanisms will be used to track and enforce compliance with new process improvements, and how will accountability be ensured across decentralized HR functions?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Candy Jones, Chief Human Resources Officer. Great question. So the office is responsible for that oversight. There are some challenges with the current structure. Each department has their own HR manager. As a new leader for the Office of Human Resources, my goal is actually to centralize some of those functions, right? So taking a very close look at each agency, working with them to establish metrics, to establish different expectations, to have a higher level of oversight and accountability of those agencies. A part of the budget asks for the Office of Human Resources includes, I think, $50,000 for HR University. And that is a significant step towards ensuring that the decentralized HR offices, that there is a level of consistency and equity across those offices. So I tell the story all the time, right? The candidate experience in any department should be very, very similar, if not the same. And right now, we're seeing that employees that are hired may experience a very different process for HR. And so I'm looking to have that consistency. And I think, to your point, that will allow my office, the Office of Human Resources, to have that additional oversight, provide resources and training to the decentralized HR managers so that we can really move forward as one consistent team.
Yeah, thank you. One of the reasons why I asked that question is that I'm a little concerned about certain positions that require some level of innovation when it comes to hiring and providing support to those departments. For example, the city of Philadelphia has about a year backlog in tree removal. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're trying to find the right people who are qualified to remove trees. And supposedly that's hard to find in the Parks and Rec department. So the reality is that how do we begin, if we're gonna do the community college route for training, what are you doing to help with finding ways to maybe train people or come up with new innovative strategies to help us get to that level of service that people are looking for in terms of tree removal?
So two things. We do partner very specifically and intentionally with city departments for what we consider to be hard to fill positions. So part of that is recruitment, part of that is working with those departments to source those particular candidates. And then we also have a significant partnership under CCME, right? Because the goal of CCME is to lead individuals to city employment, but we work with them to identify these hard to fill positions, figuring out which pathways are sort of ripe for the CCME programming, and then working with Carol DeFries and her team to be able to then link those individuals seamlessly into city employment.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. And however, one of the things that I would also, one of my last questions and comments was basically, it would be nice for us to get to our emails and also into the public to get more updates around where we are with hiring. Every couple months, positions, letting us know, hey, we're struggling with this position. Maybe we can go out to our community and say, hey, here are the open positions that are available, that you're still struggling to hire. I just feel like that innovation level has to be there, and I think your hiring process is too closed for a very public, the city is a very public space, but I just think we have to open it up a little bit better.
Agreed, and we're happy to increase our communication with council on the events that we're doing in the communities, current openings for positions, but I agree that partnership is essential to be able to kind of increase our public-facing approach with the community.
And I would like to have an agreement between, this is the last thing I'm going to say, I would like to have an agreement between your department and every district council member this coming year that you're going to have several bus stops where or something. I mean, career fairs, like that you organize, not that we organize. We got enough to organize. I'm organizing an emergency meeting about a rec center that just was shot up, unfortunately. But like I said, it's just important that you all organize it because that's your role and responsibility.
We are happy to do that. We do have a listing of all of the, in addition to the 154 events we did last year, we do have a listing, and we're quite booked for this year as well, but that includes each district, right? And so we can share that information to let you know where we're going to be, whether that's a partnership with a school or a community agency. So we are scheduled to have the bus out in the community for the upcoming recruitment season. So we're happy to do that.
I didn't know anything about it, so we'll have to figure out how to communicate better there too.
Will do.
All right, let's do it. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you. My first group of questions is for CAO. Your office recently led the administration's decision to end the work-from-home systems that were in place since the pandemic, and when this was announced, we saw surrounding counties advertise more flexible work-from-home policies. The question is, how were these policies received by the workforce, and do you expect the decision to be revisited in the near future?
How were the policies received? I think the policies were received, respectfully and candidly with some skepticism, right? Again, working from home is something that I would say a good percentage of 20%, at least 20% of our workforce became accustomed to and had opportunities to utilize during the pandemic. And so there was a pivot that needed to be made. We want to make sure that we are creating spaces where equal opportunity is centered, and having all of our teammates in person and able to talk, share, collaborate, take advantage of opportunities is very important to Mayor Parker, and just a sound HR practice, to be frank. So I think the conversation continues, and we have definitely seen the settling in period. The contacts that we were experiencing in CAO have definitely decreased. And I think we have instilled and embedded in all of our processes better supports that allow our workforce to be able to come back to work. We've already had a significant conversation around SEPTA Key advantage, the standing up of our wealthy benefit, our just-in-time, just-in-case emergency care for dependents and elderly family members. We've stood that up. And so we will continue to assess what opportunities we have for providing supports to our workforce. That was going to continue regardless of whether our employees are on-site or off-site. At the end of the day, our mission in CAO is to provide a more engaged, a more supportive work environment. We want to be a model employer, and so we're going to continue to assess those opportunities and those supports that we put in place. Every year, we go through a review of our benefits package, and Marsha Green-Jones, who's the deputy OHR of OHR within the benefits unit, does an extraordinary job. I'm sorry. Yeah, does
and
an
I just have
extraordinary
one
job
more
with that.
part. So one of the justifications for the work from home policy was the impact on Center City businesses. And I was wondering, have you been tracking the impact of this decision on Center City business, traffic, and just overall quality of life?
So respectfully, that was not one of the factors for the decision for the city's decision to return our employees to the office. Of course, the hope and the anticipation was that having more foot traffic, having more employees, whether they're our employees or any other organization's employees in Center City and in the city in general, would have a benefit. I certainly can provide any information to you in regard to the impact it's had on safety and the economy within the Center City district.
Yes, that would be helpful. Thank
Sure.
you so much.
Council member, oh, he left. Councilmember O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. President. And good morning now.
Good morning.
I know we kind of got a jump start there, but so grateful to have you all here this morning. Thank you for being here. I want to start my questions today on the city's workforce, the lifeblood of our city services, as it were. These are the folks who answer our calls to 311, the folks who repave our streets, the folks who maintain our parks, staff our libraries, collect our garbage, in some cases twice a week. Hat tip to the administration on that initiative. In order to provide the best services we can to Philadelphians, we've got to be an excellent employer, and I've heard you already mention this already. We've talked a lot in our first week of hearings about recruitment, getting folks through the door, upskilled, hired up. But I'm also worried about retention, keeping our dedicated public servants with us, particularly right now. So I have a few questions about the investments that we make in our workers and their employee satisfaction. Employees matter. President Johnson has already gotten us lifted on the SEPTA Key Advantage program question, and I did want to just verify and get on the record that it was a fact that they would all currently eligible employees in FY26 would still remain getting that program, and there would not be any cuts, so that is very encouraging. I understand that last year, as a part of a broader effort to assess employee engagement and satisfaction across city departments, an employee experience survey was conducted, which is great. And since we're over a year into this administration, I'm eager to hear what came up from that. Could you provide a little bit of background on this employee experience survey? Who received it? When was it fielded? How was it designed?
So our employee engagement survey was launched in May of 2024. We had about a 29% participation rate, which from a statistical perspective, not what we were shooting for. So we understand that we have some work to do. Just across organizations, there's opportunities for engagement and survey fatigue, right? And so I do think that played somewhat of a role, and unfortunately, it was launched at the same time as the conversations around return to office, and I think—
Folks wasn't trying to fill it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and so I think that had an impact on the participation rate. What we found is that there was a high level of trust among our first line and kind of mid-management level, that there was a lot of positive information relative to questions that were geared around confidence with your manager, your supervisor, around having the equipment that you need to perform your job. Where we had an opportunity for improvement was in communication. And so we have contacted all of our department heads, and we have availed to them within the Qualtrics system, which is the system that launched the survey. There is an action planning tool, and so we have been working with our department heads in concert with our Office of Talent and Employee Success to create action plans, walk our department heads through what an action plan would look like for their department and what their expected impact of those action plans and strategies can be.
I heard my time. We'll have another round.
Well, based upon the feedback from my colleagues, Member Rourke, I'm going to move on to the next person and save your next question for the next round, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to call on Councilmember Rue Landau.
Thank you, Council President. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you. I'll run right into this. The Employee Engagement and Infrastructure Unit and the Office of Talent and Employee Success uses internal communication and initiatives to support employee well-being, professional development, and workplace inclusivity. Since President Trump signed his anti-DEI executive orders, we've seen major companies and universities concede and dismantle their DEI programs. Is CAO planning on suspending any DEI efforts for the city of Philadelphia?
So unequivocally, no, right? We've heard the mayor say this many times. Our mission has not changed. Our responsibilities to not only Philadelphia, but to our workforce remain laser focused. And so we continue to create programs, professional development training. We hired a curriculum developer to ensure that we are availing our workforce with as many tools and resources as needed to create advancement opportunities, take advantage of advancement opportunities, and ensure that we are reaching every member of our workforce and making sure that all opportunities and any potential obstacles to employment pathways are mitigated.
Thank you. I think the next question's for OHR. We heard in their initial budget briefing that there's a 17% vacancy rate for hiring. Can you detail which departments have the highest vacancy rates?
Came prepared for that question.
Oh, sure. You came prepared. Thank you. That's good. You just drop it in the 5-year plan, and here it comes.
So at this current time, our public safety agencies have the highest rate of unfilled positions. And so that is, and these are estimates, but the sheriff's office is around 30%. The police department is around 25%, and the fire department is roughly 20% as well.
Okay.
And so we also have a list of, so aside from the highest departments, we have a list of critical positions as well, and I can detail and follow up with that, the listing of those position titles with the specific number of vacancies. We also have action plans for each of those departments, right? So OHR is partnering with prisons very intentionally to increase their recruitment classes. We're partnering with the fire department, with police, and with sheriff as well. And so in addition to identifying that those are our kind of top departments, we do have action plans and some intentional work being done with those departments.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sure.
Next question, a little tougher for you. In every program within OHR, the deputy personnel director makes over $140,000, where most of the rest of the program makes significantly less, down to $37,000 for some positions. I believe this goes kind of across the city as well. What is the city doing to create real wage equity and to fix the gaps between wages?
So we are, a little bit tougher, absolutely. So we are intentional about investments in salaries. And so I think it's important to note the Office of Human Resources is responsible for looking at pay equity across the city as a whole, across all of our civil service and our exempt job classes. And so in FY24, through the Civil Service Commission and those changes, we invested $5.3 million in salaries in some of our hard to fill, hard to recruit classes. And year to date for FY25, we've invested $3.5 million in salaries. But it doesn't end there, right? Like, we're continuously looking at our roles that are difficult to fill, making sure that there are career pathways, to your point. So although a lot of our positions are entry-level roles, we certainly we want to encourage that career trajectory. So identifying opportunities for growth and then looking at that entire pathway, because certainly we want employees to feel encouraged that they can certainly go from a management trainee level all the way up to the head of a department.
Okay, that's it for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Before
you.
I call on the next member, we just want to acknowledge that we have students observing us, future leaders observing us from Science Leadership Academy. Welcome to City Hall. Some Harvard kids as well? Okay, students from Carver? Okay, let's give a round of applause to the students from Carver as well. Welcome to City Council, Democracy in Action. And what we're doing right now, we're discussing our fiscal 26 budget. And so, welcome to the proceedings. The chair recognizes Councilmember Dr. Nina Mai.
Thank you, Council President. I have a question following up what the Council President asked about the percentages of the MWDSBE contract participation. I wasn't clear what the answer was, why it went down from 36 to 27. So that's one. And the second question is about page 11 in your testimony about the 5 largest contracts. These are all RFPs were issued and the contract start date were all in 2024 and earlier. And I see 0 participation for most of them, except 2 for the MWDSBE category. So if you could respond to that, those two, please.
In regard to the overall number and tracking of our minority and disabled business enterprises, I certainly can partner with our Director of Business Impact and Economic Growth and provide you some more information, more detailed information on what we believe were the drivers for the decrease in participation overall.
Just as a point, the OEO has still 35% as their target. So it seems to be not aligned across the city in terms of what is our target participation rate. So if you, when you get into
Absolutely.
that, I would like clarity on why it went down and why is there differences in numbers across different city agencies.
Yes. And then in regard to CAO's 5 contracts, we acknowledge and identify that as a space where we can do better. I think the greatest weight of those contracts are in our search firm area, and we have RFP'd that and want to ensure that that gives us an opportunity to better leverage a broader spectrum of potential contractors.
I mean, 0 is pretty bad.
Absolutely.
And for a search firm,
Absolutely.
I can guarantee you there are firms out there who are diverse firms to start with in order to be able to do the work. So I don't understand how
I could not agree with you more. And so
what is the answer? I understand you agree, but why is it this way?
The answer is the RFP, that we recognize that the need to create diversity within the firms that we're working with is essential, right, to achieve the outcomes that we're looking for. And so we have RFP'd for those particular services.
So just to be clear, you're saying the RFP process is why we have 0 participation?
No, I'm not saying the RFP process is why we have 0 participation. The firms, the contracts that we had were established well before my time here. It was recognized and identified as a space where we can do better, and we put an RFP out to make sure that we can leverage all of the different types of firms to include our minority-owned business firms to avail that service.
So why is it that on page 11 we don't have any current contracts? Why is it everything 2020, 2019? Don't we have what would reflect what you just said? Do we have not any data from 2020? 3, 4, 5?
I can provide that to you. Sure.
Yeah, because that would then address whether we were actually, the data says that we are doing what you said we are doing, because I'm not sure why these data points are so old. Why would we be seeing such old data points and not current data points?
Okay, my understanding is those are our 2025 contract, FY25 contracts, but so I can provide you information on contracts prior to 2025.
So it's just that the contract start dates are all
Excuse me, Doctor.
old, are all old. Quickly, sorry.
Excuse me, Dr. Ma.
Yeah.
Point of information, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Yes, and please, Mr. President, I wanted to keep my time and place in the queue, but I wanted to ask a point of clarification based on Dr. Nina Ahmad's question, and maybe this will help the answer for her. Is it that these contracts are 4-year contracts, each eligible for additional 1-year renewals? Is that why I'm asking?
So yes, these are contracts that are eligible for the additional renewals.
But meaning were they initial 3 and 4-year period contracts, and then they were eligible for 1-year renewals of up to 3 additional terms? Is that why, as an example, because I looked at that page as well, and I saw the contracts from 2019, 2018,
Right.
2022.
Correct.
So meaning, but
This is our
to
first
her
opportunity
question-
to, yes.
Right, to her question though, is it an initial 3 or 4-year contract that had an opportunity for renewals that the city did undertake, which is why the contract start date is so old?
Let me get back to you on that question.
Okay, I just wanted to put
Thank
that
you.
on the record.
Thank
for
you,
Okay.
Majority
Dr. Nina
Leader.
Ahmad, reclaim your time.
Yes, thank you so much, Council President. I have a separate question on the CCME, and I wanted to know just where we are on things, meaning I know it's very new. So do you have any stats on who you have enrolled, where they're from, which parts of the city they're from, and are we having to do remedial work to get them ready for things? So just a general snapshot of where we are with CCME.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. We launched the program in October with a first initial cohort with 2 programs in technology and business administration. That first cohort, we had about 74 people who enrolled. Largely, most of the individuals who were enrolled were kind of in a core course that we call our CCME Power Skills, which is something that everyone has to take. And then there were enrollments in the 2 career courses. Those individuals have transferred now into the spring. So we have about 76 people currently enrolled in the spring across 4 separate career pathway programs, which include additional programs in business administration and technology, but also we added healthcare and the skilled trades in the auto tech area. So we currently have the 76 individuals with the expectation that about 20 of those individuals will be completing at the end of this semester. Each program has a different timeline, and individuals are given up to 18 months to complete their program because some programs are non-credit, some are credit. So they all have different requirements. In terms of the remediation, it depends on the particular program, and part of the model that we've built with Community College of Philadelphia is if someone encounters a barrier into entry in any of the credit-based programs, they will receive developmental work or bridge programming that can help them get into the college, into that particular program. The programs that we're looking at are in particular like the shorter term, either non-credit training or proficiency certificate, because we want to get people into the jobs as quickly as possible. So that's the focus of where we're starting and what we've initiated. In addition, we've also begun to work with several high school populations to get them aligned with jobs that are in city government that allow individuals to come right out of high school into careers. So we're working with the water department, we're working with fleet management, Department of Public Property, streets and the Future Track program, in addition to we're hoping that we can build a model around neighborhood and community engagement. And then the last area is around the upskilling, where we've been working with various different departments on 3 separate programs. We have 5 cohorts currently running, and we've completed 1 cohort in electronic tech. That's in partnership with Jeff's Orleans Technical College. We have another cohort that will be graduating on the 8th, so next week. We're excited about that. We have 2 cohorts at CCP in the surveyor position with the streets department, and then we're also currently, we just started a program around maintenance and mechanic with both the water department and the streets department in that particular area. We're in constant communication with the different departments about what their needs are, and how we can address them both in terms of thinking about the entry-level jobs that are available and have high volume need or are hard to fill. And then we're also thinking about those second and third tier positions where we can move city employees up into those. And then that opens up more entry-level positions for us to bring people in. So we're kind of trying to create a more cyclical and continuous cycle to get individuals into both the programs that are around upskilling and then also entry-level.
And just concluding, so in these 7 months since you've started, have we actually placed anyone in the jobs?
We're going to wrap this up.
Yeah, wrapping, last little question. Anybody we have actually placed?
We're still actively trying to place individuals. We only had 3 people fully complete as of this moment.
Thank you, Council President, for your indulgence.
Absolutely, Dr. Ma. We're going to get to that second round. Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to go really fast because I do need to come back on the second round. I wanted to just say thank you to Camille Duchesset, CAO, your entire team, for all the work that we've done on the nonprofit task force. Procurement, welcome to the new Procurement Commissioner, and to all the team members. Real special shout out to Jim Leonard, Commissioner of Records, and Tracy Williams. They have done stellar work. Giovanni in her office, Candy Jones, Mike Zaccagney for helping us with the CTE point preference, Janine Labletta, who sends us all of the employment opportunities, particularly those for folks who are eligible for the 5-point preference, and then I'll go from there. Really quickly, and I want to also thank LaShonda Tompkins. I had her down here too because she was stellar during those meetings. I appreciate all the work that we did on the nonprofit piece, and I'll come back to that on my second round. Last week during budget hearings, I had talked about my concerns around the workforce development department and unit moving from under Commerce to CAO. And I wanted to go back to that. I heard you talk about CCME, but I do have real concern around, moving workforce development to CAO because, under the pandemic, the department was slated to be eliminated. We worked really hard in council to keep it. So if you could just talk about how, what that is.
What the combination is,
Meaning,
or the commitment is to maintaining the Office of Workforce Development?
It's even in the budget documents where it shows the workforce development is coming from Commerce and going to CAO. Why?
So again, there's no, first of all, no doubt, or there should be no lack of confidence of the commitment to continuing that work. That work is essential. It is thread through every initiative, whether it's safer, cleaner, greener, access to economic opportunity, building economic mobility, building our workforce is essential to all of it, right? So there is no version of this that we don't continue the work of the external contacts and the work of the Office of Workforce Development. My apologies. Again, I can't stress enough, we experienced this ourselves in standing up CCME and the Office of Workforce Planning, right? There was a lot of segmented work that was going on across the city, and it wasn't efficient in terms of, the outcomes were efficient, and I think the work itself, but the management of it wasn't efficient in that there were opportunities for partnership that we lost because we had no idea of all the variety of offerings across the city of Philadelphia. Again, there's great work that's being done, but it's being done in departments specifically.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry, I heard the bell and I need to get this on the record, and I hear that. But this is one of those times where what is happening is going strictly against the code that is in place. Chapter 18-600, Workforce Development Activity and Reporting. If you go to 18-602 under Workforce Development Activity Requirements, it states that the division shall be led by members of Department of Commerce leadership. The division shall promote workforce development in the city for the purpose of connecting Philadelphians with jobs and training opportunities and for the purpose of connecting employers to Philadelphia's workforce. The division shall serve as a point of contact for employers, including private, public, and quasi-public employers interested in hiring Philadelphians. The division shall collect data and supporting documentation as is meaningful and available to comply with the workforce development reporting requirements as set forth in 18-603. The division shall work in collaboration with Philadelphia Works, the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, other entities outside of municipal government concerned with workforce development. The division shall coordinate with the Workforce Professional Alliance and with other institutional partners concerned with workforce development. So, and that part of the code goes on. So again, my initial concern was that work is already supposed to be happening, and if it was not happening, we should ensure that it is happening, because now what you all are asking us to do goes against the code of the city of Philadelphia. And it seems as if, just as this proposal was presented to council, you all arbitrarily moved workforce development under CAO and are asking the members of council to be in conflict with the laws that are in place.
So the first thing I'd say is that it wasn't arbitrary, right? The Office of CAO is the enterprise-wide administrative arm of the city of Philadelphia. All of the work that goes into workforce development, whether it's external or internal, hits all of the departments that sit in CAO, to include OHR, OIT, procurement. All of those are essential to successful programs, workforce development programs.
But I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. But what I'm saying is that in the code, in the Philadelphia Code, it states that workforce development is supposed to be under the Department of Commerce leadership. It doesn't say CAO. It says Department of Commerce leadership. So my concern and my question is, why are we being asked to do something that technically is against the way our code and the current law is set up?
So the leadership of the Commerce Department is a very close partner to us. I understand the concern that you have very specifically in regard to the code, but the leadership of Commerce plays a significant role in how our workforce development programming and functions move forward. That doesn't change. They are still an active participant in all of the alliances and the collaboration that goes into the work of OWD. Again, rather than creating spaces where there isn't full view of the work that's being done, the idea of placing OWD within CAO was to improve upon, I think, and I know we don't disagree.
I know we don't disagree. With you. The goals, we agree.
Yes.
We agree. You know how much I care about this work. I did the 5-point preference. That's how we're hiring young people when they come from a CTE program and work for the city of Philadelphia. We have young people in Fleet, young people working in all departments. And I agree with you. You all know that we work very closely. But this has been a major concern of mine for 5 years since I've been here. This department was slated to be eliminated, and we put the money in council to keep it. But what I'm saying is that you all are asking us to do something that is strictly against the code. That's what I'm saying, because in the definition, even in 18601, it says that the Division of Workforce Solutions within the Department of Commerce. And I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. We agree on the goals, but you all are asking us to be in conflict with the law.
So I hear you, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but again, the leadership of Commerce still plays a significant role in the workforce development space.
Okay, because I want to move on to the next person. However, I think probably the city solicitor, whoever does the legislation on behalf of the administration, should at least get back with an official response. Because actually, the law actually says one thing, and we're doing something totally different. So just for the record, transparency, accountability, Committee 70 type stuff, we just want to make sure we're doing things the way we're supposed to be doing, in proper, as my Nana say, in proper decency and in order. Is that okay, Madam Leader?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
All right, official response back
Sure,
from the
yes,
city
will do.
solicitor regarding the reorganization of this particular department. Oh, okay, so for the individuals who stepped out the room and are back, so I'm gonna call on Councilmember Isaiah Thomas.
I'm speechless. Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you to everybody from the admin that's here. Thank you to all my colleagues because you've asked some phenomenal questions. I'm like crossing them off one at a time. Let me just start with local procurement stuff. We passed a bill a few years ago coming out of the pandemic that basically said that the city of Philadelphia had to have a certain percentage of all city contracts go to Philadelphia-based businesses. Based on looking at the admin's first year last year, where did we finish? How did we do last year as it relates to following the law, specifically around and keeping local legislation?
Sure, so I'm going to turn to our new Procurement Commissioner, Ronald Hovey, and also ask that LaShonda Tompkins, Deputy Procurement Commissioner, come to the table.
So I'll start and I'll let LaShonda pile on if she has anything to add or correct me if I get anything wrong. So in 24, our goal was 47%, and we actually achieved 54%. Our goal going forward in 25 is 56. And I asked for, we didn't have the numbers yet for a to-date percentage, but we'll get that to you, but it looked like we were doing well. And this is a rolling 3-year average, by the way, so that it has a little smoothing associated with it and from a data standpoint.
That's amazing. Has anybody done any type of economic study to assess the impact that this has had prior to the legislation? Less than 30% of all city contracts went to Philadelphia-based businesses, and now we're up over 50%. So from an economic perspective, how much does that help benefit the city? Because those businesses that we're investing in and pouring in, those businesses get to grow, they get to hire more people, they end up paying more taxes, and it ends up being revenue back to us. So have we looked at the improvements from our local economy based on since the legislation has been passed in the law?
So I haven't spoken to Rob DeVoe on the fiscal side of the business.
Can that be a homework assignment? Can we, before we pass or vote the budget this year, look at the Keep It Local legislation and try to assess how much from a fiscal lens has it benefited the city?
Absolutely. He has the relationship with the economists.
Amazing, thank you. I have a lot of other questions. I'm gonna submit them in writing, but one question is burning me up, and I need to know. For OIT, we're looking at a 10 million, and somebody asked this already. I did step out, as the council president says. I apologize if I missed it. There's been a $10 million increase in class 200 for OIT, which is about 12% increase. And why? What are the new initiatives or new projects, or why are we asking for $10 million more dollars in class 200, which is a 12% increase, but I haven't heard about any new projects, any new ventures. Just help us understand that line item.
Hello, Melissa Scott, Chief Information Officer. So we have actually many projects, and so that bucket could go to multiple places. We have the Opal Project, which you're aware of.
I'm sorry, you have the what project?
Opal Project, are you aware of Opal? Oh, okay, let me get that out for you. Hold on.
That's a new project.
No, it's a project that's currently, we've been working on for several years.
So my time is up, and I definitely want to move on. And if you don't have the answer, you could put it in writing. But I'm saying that if we're if you're requesting $10 million new dollars, one would think that something new is coming.
Yeah,
so I'm
so
just
we
wondering.
do have something new. Let me share that with you. I think you'll be really interested in that. So as you can see right now on the homepage, if you go to phila.gov, you currently see a new homepage. We are in the process of replatforming phila.gov, so now that all of the pages will be new and modernized, which also would allow us for the capabilities of single sign-on for residents. I know that's something that everyone is interested in, as well as bringing in-house mobile development. So what that does is, we have a lot of contracts, and where the bleeding begins is, or which never ends, is the maintenance part, where we have vendors that come in and you see the dollar amount on the RFP, but what we forget to consider is the years of maintenance and millions of dollars that the city spends. So by bringing in a mobile house development team, we'll be able to create mobile apps for different departments, which will allow constituents to receive information quickly and more readily available. So that's one of few.
Council President, I'm not going to go back and forth. I'm just going to ask that you submit this information in writing. But when you're talking about some of the changes in technology, that sounds amazing.
Yes.
Listening to the idea of apps and new websites and things of that capacity. I know me.
Yes.
And I know my staff. If I vote for this, then we don't have no new apps.
Yeah.
And no new technology.
Well,
and everything is just as archaic as it is right now. That would be extremely frustrating. So as I close out, I hear the new programs. I'm sure that there are way more. I really don't want to monopolize folks' time. I'm not going to come back for the second round, but I'm hanging. I ain't going nowhere. But I do want to, I will submit my answers, questions in writing. If you could give us a list of all of those things. And then including that, you're talking about growing 24 positions when the office isn't filled already. So just help us in writing, just help us understand, how are you asking for more money for more staff when you can't fill the positions that you have? All right, thank you, Council President.
No, could you go on the record and explain that now, just for the record, please? It's a legitimate question, and it's in my notes, but I digress for my members, but it is in my notes as well. So I think we want to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we're doing good by the taxpayers' dollars. I think inquiring minds want to know.
So I have the unique advantage of working within OIT as well as leading a department, so I understand more than anyone that the culture of OIT needs to change, and I've been making an extra effort to make sure that we invest in our employees and skill up, which also helps for retention, as well as a collaborative department where employees can work together also with other departments. So I want to take a look at the numbers for a second, and as far as where we are, our vacancy rate is actually 80 that are funded by OIT, but I took a further look at where we are within the year, and we had 77 separations within this year. So I think what we need to concentrate more so than anything is really on retention. How do we keep our employees? Because I feel like I'm chasing my tail, if you will. I've been working very hard in order to create new positions. Are important because technology is constantly evolving. So we did have 93 new positions, and we were able to fulfill 66 of them. However, we had 77 separations, 21 people retired, but 0 of those positions were posted for more than a year. So that just gives you a little perspective of where we are in the industry and how we need to make a better effort in making sure that we retain our talent when we find them in this competitive market, because we do have in our staff the brightest and the best. So they're constantly being recruited.
Okay. I'll always keep it a being. Thank you for the land bank streamlining process in terms of the new program we have. So I deal with developers on a daily basis, and so I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. So thank you and your team for revamping the land bank website. The chair recognizes Councilmember Jim Harity, then Jamie Gaultier, then Councilmember Jeffrey J. Young, and then we'll officially go into our second round.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Just a couple following up questions on some of the stuff that we just did. So, as it goes for retention, because that apparently is even a more dire need than actually the hiring, which I thought was a dire need. How do we make it more attractive for our employees to stay? I know when I first got here, I put 10 million alone into the budget for bonuses for first responders and hard to find positions such as building inspectors, where it takes a lot of time to train them with a very expensive cost. And then they end up working for us for a few months and go get paid double out in the county. How do we face that challenge? How do we keep people here? Is it by extending benefits? For instance, 30 years lifetime medical. I don't know. I'm fishing for answers, if you get what I'm saying. We need a fix. If we can't even keep up with the employees we're losing on a daily basis, for whatever reason, retirement, leaving to go to another job, how are we supposed to fill these 5,700 positions? It makes a lot more sense now when you look at the number of people who filled out applications, which was something around 10,000 or so. No, it was, I forget what the number was, but it was a lot more than the actual number we needed. It was extremely higher. But how do we keep up with this? Because this is going to be a problem.
So I can start with just a few data points I think would be helpful to level set the tone, and I know that the CAO probably has a few comments for this. So just generally, the average years of service for city employees is 13 years of service. So we're doing okay as far as retention, and we are seeing that when we're looking at the change from FY23 to FY25, voluntary turnover is declining. I did send over some of the separations data in advance, and so we're seeing that voluntary turnover is going down, which is a positive thing for us. But I think there's a couple of different things. I think benefits certainly, right? So the expansion of parental leave is certainly something that is going to retain.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
That would seem to me to be something that's kind of an easy fix.
No, absolutely. It's an easy fix, but it is huge. It has huge impact, right? And so the deputy at the Office of Human Resources, Marsha Green-Jones, is constantly looking at the landscape of city benefits to figure out if there are opportunities for us to expand particular benefits like parental leave and other things in order to gain retention. We're also looking at, we have programs like credential-based bonuses, tuition reimbursement. And so there's a variety of programs. I don't think it's a one-size-fit-all, right, for retention. I think we need to sort of attack that issue from various angles.
Yeah, I ask about it, you know what I mean? So I talk to the police officers when I see them, and I talk to others, and to be honest, especially for police officers, once they get their 25, it's not really beneficial for them to stay here. Which is kind of harsh. I mean, their pensions are capped at, I think, 65% for the police, and that's just the one I know off the top of my head. So why would somebody stay once they hit their time and they can't get any more? Again, maybe looking at that and also looking at our benefits and the longevity of our benefits it is something that maybe we need to start looking to try to make it more attractive to stay here in the city. The fact of the matter is the city is fairly a good job. People, you can survive, you can raise a family a lot of times on the city wage, but people do these jobs for a long period of time and they get good at it, and then other people want them. And so they leave and they go get more money. We just need to figure out how do we attract employees. Like I said, when I was a kid, I remember a city job was it. You know, you got a city job, you were set for life. You know what I mean? I always give the example, my father was a Port Authority cop, and my uncle was a sanitation worker. And their house always had more than our house had because he got all this overtime. You know, in which I don't believe somebody should have to work overtime in order to make a pay. That should be optional if you want something extra. But for me, it's about how do we retain the employees that we have in order so that we can actually catch up on the employees we need.
And I think we have been, this is a question that has been at the forefront of all of the work that's been done across the administration. I know that you all are very much aware that the home initiative also includes incentivizing or creating affordable housing for very specifically members of our workforce. There are a lot of different kind of innovative things that we're trying to work through to get to a place where...
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I get that, but since you mentioned it, that program's really not doing like we thought it was going to do either. From what I understand, talking to employees, again, is that they actually can't afford the houses. These are supposed to be work for houses for our employees. Again, we mandate that our employees should live in the city, but we don't pay them enough to live in the city. And then we're trying to start a program to help them to live in the city, and they can't afford the program that we started. For me, it's different. I was in administration, so I was in the street administration. I've seen a lot of things go on before I left there. I've seen him do a lot of things. I learned that government does not need to make a profit. We get subsidized on these housing things. Remember when John Street was building houses, Council President, a few people were here, some of those houses cost us upwards of $260,000 to build. You know what we sold them for? $65,000. People could think, because we don't have to make a profit, subsidized. Most of it wasn't actual city money, it was federal and state money. My thing is, why you brought it up, and we need to get that program on steroids, as the mayor says, because I believe that it can be a good thing. We just have to make it affordable for our employees. We know what we're paying them, so why can't we make it so that they can afford it on their pay?
Right, and I believe we are aligned there, right? And so the experience that I've had working in the Federal Bureau of Prisons for 20 some odd years was just that. You'll find that retaining employees in the prison system in particular is a prickly and difficult challenge to crack, right? What we found was housing was an incentive, right? Where we built correctional institutions and provided staff housing, that was a very significant incentive where we provided other supports, where we got out into the community and understood what were the things that were specifically important to the folks who were moving to those areas, was the work that improved our retention and recruitment in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. That's exactly the work that's being done here. I will tell you a lot of the work around return to learning, the work around CCME, upskilling, creating different pathways so that, yes, you get into the city's government and you decide, I want to pivot to a different path. Making that available, making it less difficult, creating more conversation around exactly what you just said. The importance and the pride in working in the public sector, right? We have created within CCME an entire class program that's built around understanding the importance and the value of civic engagement and public service. And so all of those things are pieces to the issue that you've raised. How do we attack retention? I think all of these things and all of the work that's being done is geared towards that.
Thank you very much. I will hope that, and we want to be partners in this, because we're on the front line right now, right? Local government is really the last option of resort for a lot of people. And as we see people being laid off on the federal level, and I have people in my neighborhood who have been laid off, and they're looking to us. And this is just a prime opportunity to really go hard and recruit as many people as possible to fill these positions as a result of the policies that are coming down from Washington, D.C. having an impact on our community. So we would like to be partners in that and really address it with a sense of urgency, right? Because even as we build and preserve 30,000 units, if people don't have good paying jobs, right, then we'll just have 30,000 preserved vacant units that people won't have the opportunity to move in. And so we want to be partners from that aspect. And anything that we can do to address this with a sense of urgency, I'm sure members of council will join you in your efforts. The chair recognizes Councilmember Jeffrey J. Young. Oh, it was you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
It was you? I'm sorry.
I'll defer.
It was Jamie Gaultier. See what happened when y'all leave? It was Jamie Gaultier, then Councilmember Jeffrey J. Young, and then we'll officially go into 1 second. Councilman Lozada, do you want to wrap up this first round before we go into the second round?
I'm in no trouble, sir.
Okay, all right. Just before we go into the second round, if you would like to ask a question, man. Councilman Jamie Gaultier.
Thank you, Council President. I have questions for the Tax Review Board. Good morning. The biggest issues my constituents have with property appeals are unclear timelines and communication. When folks submit their appeals, they typically do not receive confirmation that it was received unless it's submitted through our office. They also do not know who their reviewer is until they receive the decision. What steps can the review board take to improve communication and give people updates at every step of the appeal process? And what can the review board do to improve transparency for how long the process will take? The 5-year plan reads that it takes 5 to 6 months, but most cases really take up to a year.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Andre. I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Tax Review Board. And unfortunately, I believe some of these questions are for the Board of Revision of Taxes, which deals with the assessment of the appeals. The Tax Review Board takes care of or can help petitioners deal with the interest and the penalties that have accrued. So 2 different boards, but I think the questions that you asked were more for the Board of Revision of Taxes. However, the Tax Review Board has we hold very fast to a 3 to 6 months for the initial appeal. So if you come into our office and you file a hearing, it takes approximately 3 to 6 months. We do have a backlog in one category, which is license and inspections for the bills for those taxes. But that is being controlled. So generally, we are at a 3 to 6 month window for a petition and for a hearing.
Thank you. I apologize. I'll move on to a different set of questions so I don't use all my time. But thank you for coming up here.
No problem.
I have a question for OIT. I know that in 2020, the city released a digital equity plan with the goal of getting everybody online. We are in a new administration, but I wanted to ask, is that still a goal of this administration? And if so, where are we with that?
Thank you. So yes, this is a goal continuously through the Verizon franchise agreement. We are placing free Wi-Fi broadband services in all 183 locations. Right now we have 50 of those locations lit up. But what is really exciting is that we just launched the new Wi-Fi finder. So right now you can go online and identify what locations where you can find free Wi-Fi here within the city, which includes the recreation centers as well as the libraries. And as each location gets lit up, it gets added in the finder, so constituents can use that today.
And are we tracking how many people are connected through these efforts and which areas of the city still need the most work?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. What we want to do is find a way to have more lasting, transformative relationships with constituents. So we have we are bringing in-house our digital navigators, where they'll start to work with individuals in as far as distributing devices, but providing them digital skills training. Then identifying, are we being impactful in their lives, right? So I want us to really develop a relationship with the constituents and make sure that they get the digital training as well. So, because when you think of the 3 tiers, Wi-Fi is just one layer. Then you need the device, right, to get on. Then you need the skills that you need in order to actually take full advantage. And then we could even take it even further, where you think of, how is it that an individual could qualify for some jobs here in IT, right? By us starting and building on those blocks, we would then be able to start training individuals to qualify for the positions. But what the vision that I have is really imagine that every single rec center in the city of Philadelphia, and instead of a young girl or a young boy getting a football in their hand, you give them a computer. A computer is a job just as well, right? Esports, and there's so many other things that we could be teaching our youth.
Thank you so much. It would be great if at some point when you all are ready, if you could just send us a progress report on where we are with that. I think this is a very important goal for the district, my district, and for the city as a whole.
Sure.
Thank you, Council President.
As point of information regarding esports to the gentleman, Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. You read my mind. We have been pushing for esports in a lot of different spaces and places, especially in our rec centers and our libraries. Wasn't going to ask this, but you brought it up. I mean, are we talking about the initiative you have where you're talking about distributing 50 computers in each council district?
No, that's just the beginning,
Okay.
Councilman. So, and let me talk to you a little bit about why that came about. We were contracted with a company called PC for People. And PC for People, they do the refurbishing of the computers, but then they charge the constituents for the computers anywhere from $50 to $175. I didn't think it was fair. I feel like we should be giving the computers away for free. So now what we've changed the program around a little bit, and what we're doing is going in each council district, distributing the computers, but we also have a extra effort in order to repurpose the computer labs within the rec centers. Then we are creating a program for digital skills training right there in the rec centers, and esports is one of them. As a matter of fact, I have an appointment with a school somewhere in Delaware, and they have a very elaborate esports center, and we're going to take a trip there to see how they built theirs out and get some more information for ours.
So just to continue, how much like that initiative, that's going to cost us about $1.6 million? Is that accurate?
No, I don't have a funding source for that exactly. So what I've been doing is taking the funding that we currently have in digital equity and figuring out a way. But there's also, we get grants all the time. There's always different ways to do it. But the digital skills training specifically will start off with, we are hiring 6 new individuals who will do the digital skills training just to start out for FY26 in the rec centers. And then we'll start a volunteering program as well for individuals like myself who would like to go in and do some training as well.
So, Council President, I'm just going to ask that we have a coordinated effort with our office throughout the course of this initiative, specifically around gaming. It seems like we're meshing digital access with gaming, which are 2 totally different things. And if we were really talking about promoting and pushing gaming, and if you talk to the people in the gaming industry, they'll tell you they'll rather be in the libraries than the rec center. So if we can have more of a coordinated effort moving forward, so we can figure out, because some of the places that you're talking about going to in Delaware, we have a whole task force that produced a report that has all of these recommendations for the city of Philadelphia, specifically around gaming, and maybe we can share that and bring some of these people together so we can be able to move in a way that's a little coordinated.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council President. Sorry about that.
And I just want to say, in terms of just bridging the digital divide and as we address the issue of AI, because that's also a space that I expect that we'll be in the future as well, when our chair of technology has been working on this issue. And also, as a dad, I just want to say, right, and I blame Member Thomas in the event that it goes down this way with my little ones, right? As a dad, I just want to say that we're mindful when we are introducing them to technology, just making sure also we're protecting them.
Yes.
You don't know who's on the other side of their group chat when they're inside the rec centers and they go on like Roblox or they go on Fortnite, and once they go into a chat room, you don't know who's over there talking to our young people. So making sure that education component is a part of it, and then also the mental health component that comes along with screen time. I recognize that and working with other parents, and I've been to other workshops that really talk about, I guess I call it screen addiction for children,
Yes.
right? And once you take their screen away from them, having an impact on their behavior because they want to still be involved in playing. Again, rather it's Roblox, Fortnite, and there's 1,000 other games that are out there. And then also just making sure that they aren't spending their parents' dollars and cents on their credit cards on. So those are just some of the things that as we expand and go into this space, I say it jokingly, but in my other life as a dad, I've been to workshops really around protecting my sons from and the other students at the school they attend from when they go on these websites, particularly making sure when they go in them chat rooms, who are you talking to on the other side of the room? And if you have rec centers where the ratio might be 40 kids to like two rec leaders, they aren't monitoring everybody who's on the computers. They're kind of like free at play. So I think the education component goes a long way to it, but we are here to be partners with that under the leadership of Councilmember Rue Landau and Councilmember Thomas. Did you recognize the Councilmember Jeffrey J. Young?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have in support of, the e-gaming industry and the billions of dollars that can come from that, and hearing from the experts who say they want to be in libraries, which is why I am very supportive of increasing the capacity, increasing the square footage of our libraries in order to have these types of programs, because again, our libraries are not equipped for 21st century ideas. And so just want to put that out there on the record. And first question I have is for, I guess it would be for HR. One thing that I do notice and that I see is that whenever I'm at a job fair and the city is there, the city's line is the longest line by far compared to any other prospective employer that's there. So it looks like to me that there is a lot of interest in still working for the city. But this interest doesn't seem to turn over into the actual job. So can you talk to us about what you're seeing? Like, is it only a specific type of job that people are applying to that have all this interest versus the level of vacancies that we see?
Sure. So there is definitely a lot of interest. When we're at, so 60% of our recruitment events are community events where you're seeing us boots on the ground with or without the hiring bus. And so we're engaging over 4,000 prospective applicants, 71% of whom are residents. And so that spans across various career pathways. And so there are very particular jobs. So jobs that are open on an open competitive basis are the jobs that we are in when we're doing community recruitment that we're getting our residents into. So that includes custodial worker, laborer, management trainee, some of our entry-level engineering positions. And so we do have a breakdown of what those applicants looks like across all of those industries that I can follow up and provide. But it is not in any particular job industry. When we are sourcing for candidates, it is really across all of these critical positions that we're looking for to recruit open competitively in.
Thank you. And so when the city, years ago, the city had a need to clean vacant lots, and so they created the CLIP program, right? The Community Life Improvement Program, which is based out of the managing director's office. And from my understanding, these workers are not civil service employees, and I believe they weren't civil service employees. They are not civil service employees because that need was so critical, and the speed of getting those folks hired was critical. We're looking at a lack of, a lot of my rec centers don't have staff, right? There's no staff there for events, for programming, and the community members, you have to have at least 2 staffers there at a rec center, and community members cannot have events there with the lack of staffing. And so because I feel like this is a dire issue, a dire need, is it possible to create a similar program to CLIP for our rec centers where we have, these staffers that are under the managing director's office but work directly in these rec centers to fill this critical community need?
Just a point of information. Remember, we do have a program, and we do have a program that will allow you a pathway to, you won't be official RS1 rec leader, but you will be able to work under Parks and Rec. And remember this program under CAP from Level I, because the barrier in our neighbors, that you have people who volunteer day in and day out, they know the kids in the neighborhood, they work at the rec centers, and then they get the seasonal jobs, right?
Right.
But the issue is they don't have degrees. And because they don't have a degree, I guess to be the RS1, right? And they also have to take the test. But there is a program, could you elaborate on, that will allow you a pathway into the system without going through civil service?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to ask Janine Lebetta, Deputy for Hiring Services, to come up to talk about that particular pathway and the work that we're doing with Parks and Recreation in particular.
And while Janine is making her way up here, I would also like to say that it's this collaboration and the work that makes CCME so vital, right? It's closing that gap between the number of applicants that we have and the skills that they have to fill the jobs that are available. Sorry.
Hi, good morning. Janine Lebletta, Deputy for Hiring Services. Thank you for having us. So we do have 2 titles in civil service that don't require degrees, Assistant Recreation Leader and Recreation Outreach Worker. So we do post those and recruit in the community to fill those. And then to the Council President's point, that would be the role called Recreation Specialty Instructor, which is filled directly through the Parks and Recreation Department. And we do direct candidates in the field, or if they call our customer service, how to reach the Parks Department website, and they can apply directly for those roles.
And with those roles, and there seems to be a disconnect from community members, right, who are at rec centers all the time, right, in programming, they're in friends of groups, and actually getting hired by the rec department. And so I'm just trying to, how can we bridge that gap? I'm thinking of 3 rec centers off the top where there are folks who are there all the time, who would love to be getting paid for what they're doing, but they're there for the love of the community. So how can we bridge that gap if we have these programs, right, and they're not civil service, right, because everyone can't pass the civil service test for whatever reason. It just is what it is. But how do we bridge that gap between the community members who want to serve and getting hired by the Department of Rec in some capacity at that rec center to expand our capacity there?
Yes, so Parks and Recreation is having a job fair coming up. Hopefully all of the council members have that at the Dell.
Yeah, we have that. That's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
But again, I'm talking about how can we create a positions, right? We have these fairs are there. A lot of those folks, don't have degrees, so they're not going to be able to qualify for rec leaders. They created the assistant rec leader program. Like, how do we, again, bridge that gap? We got the seasonal program that's seasonal, right? How can we, again, bridge that gap between, we have folks who are there every day at the rec center who are just there on a voluntary basis. What can we do to get them hired by the city in some type of role at the rec center? If they can pass, all the child clearances, things like that, how can we get them to be employees to actually carry out their duties that they're already volunteering to do?
If they have high school, and I think it's 3 seasons, but I can have us send you that, they can qualify for permanent civil service roles.
Again, civil service, I'm not saying civil service, right? Because again, folks are not able to get over civil service for whatever reason. When I mentioned the example of CLIP in the managing director's office, that's not civil service. But those folks work for the city full time, right? And they're out here doing these jobs. So that's the type of model that I'm looking for our Department of Recreation, a full-time position, not necessarily just something that's seasonal.
So, thank you, I'm sorry. So I appreciate the question, and we are very happy to partner with you on that because we've already had some preliminary conversation about just what the model, expanding the model that you're mentioning, creating, where we can, civil service roles, but also exempt roles to bridge the gap. I know CCME, I've said it a lot, it's not the panacea for all things, but it will allow us to create spaces to provide upskilling, training, qualifying experiential opportunities to do exactly what you're suggesting here, which is bridge the gap between those who have either a penchant or have demonstrated the ability to do some work or the aptitude to do the work and get us from point A to point B.
The chair recognizes the Vice Chair of Parks and Recreation, Councilmember Bass.
What comes to mind from Councilman Young's questioning is Philly Future Track, which is a way that was used, to find a faster path to employment in the streets department and in similar departments. So something like that, if we did it for that particular agency, I think we can recreate it and maybe or even expand Future Track so that it's not just the streets department, but that it could be for Parks and Rec and some other departments.
So where there's a bridge, I hear you, where there's a bridge and possibly an exempt opportunity that then leads to civil service in the future, agreed. We should have that conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're in the second round. The chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to go right to my questions. One is, how many OIT staff are dedicated to maintaining the PVSSP camera network, and what percentage of OIT's annual personnel budget is consumed by the PVSSP maintenance? And my other question is, what is the estimated annual savings for family enrolled in PHL Connected, and how does this free up income for other essentials like food or rent?
Could you repeat the question? The first question, Councilwoman, was how many staff members are designated?
Yes, for the PVSSP camera network.
Okay, I'll have to get back to you on the exact number of, we'll get a response back to the chair for the number of staffs specifically.
And then the part two was the OIT's annual personnel budget. How much is that consumed by the maintenance of that program?
Okay.
Just in case, I just want you to have the full question if you have to get back to us. Okay.
Okay, yeah, so we'll get back to you about the number of how much specifically for the maintenance.
Okay, and then the other question was the annual savings for PHL Connected?
For each household?
Yes.
I don't want to just blurb out random numbers, so I'll get back to you about that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Councilman Ketelizada. Then we have Councilmember Gilmore Richardson and Councilmember O'Rourke.
I just want to follow up on a question that Councilmember Young was just referring to. If I'm not mistaken, I remember, I believe it was the mayor that mentioned that HR would look at all of the jobs that we had that were open and available in the city and determine which ones of them had to be civil service, which ones could be exempt, which ones didn't need degrees. Can you tell me if that assessment has been done and how successful it was, and what, if it wasn't, what were some of the challenges?
Sure, I'm happy to turn over to Candy Jones, but, so what you're referring to is the Executive Order 0324, and it really was our economic opportunity executive order by which we were going to assess the entire universe of positions across the city, but specifically exempt roles for other pathways to qualification. And so that work continues. As you can imagine, there are a lot of exempt titles, and exempt titles continue to be created. And that work is in full steam. A lot of adjustments have been made, and Candy will speak to that, where we have changed the qualifications to include pathways other than a bachelor's degree or advanced degree.
So,
I'm sorry.
We do that to those positions that are civil service?
We're doing it for all positions.
Okay, all of them?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So to that point, oh, sorry.
And can you tell me how many thus far have been filled and how many are still vacant?
So to answer the first question, about 63% of the civil service job descriptions do not require a four-year degree. Those jobs, that 63% is occupied by about 19,000 employees, and so about 2/3 of the workforce are in jobs that don't require a four-year degree. The other 1/3 are your like medical classes, engineering, financial accounting, where the degree may be industry standard. We've changed, in 2024, we identified 15 civil service positions where we could include an alternate path, and so where there were an alternate education requirement other than that bachelor's degree. We've had some significant success stories there. For example, the land administrator class, which is an IT title, we actually were able to add 8 more employees to qualify for that by removing that degree requirement. For exempt titles, there are approximately 1,200 job titles for exempt roles, and then in 2024, about 10% of those job descriptions were reviewed and then alternate pathways identified. And so I can give you we have the comprehensive list in the report on which job titles that we changed for civil service and exempts. We can provide that separately, but we have made significant progress in looking at those titles, identifying alternate pathways to employment other than the bachelor's degree requirement.
Can we, as council members, receive a list of what some of those available positions are so that when we are out in the community and folks are asking us, you know, I want to come into the city's workforce, what is available? Some folks don't have access to Philadelphia.gov, or sometimes, you know, there's a true digital divide in the city of Philadelphia. And so is there somewhere where we can say, reach out to the office, here's a paper? I know I used to get a paper copy back in the day, so I don't know.
We can, absolutely. We're happy to provide that information. Our recruitment team is also happy to partner because we've realized that hosting a set of information sessions is helpful for community members to talk about these opportunities that are available where bachelor's degrees are not required. And so we can provide you with a comprehensive list, but we'd be happy to do some more targeted outreach and provide that information one-on-one to community members as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I have a question around procurement. Do I have a time still? I'm taking advantage that he's talking. At one of the Economic Opportunity Review Committee's hearings, we heard concerns that vendors were not notified when they win or lose a bid. The guest speaker stated that the lack of communication leads to wasted time and resources for businesses, particularly small and minority-owned vendors who rely on timely feedback to improve their bids and plan accordingly. Implementing a formal notification system could enhance transparency and efficiency in the procurement process. Are you guys aware of this, and what steps is your department taking to implement a solution that ensures vendors receive timely notification?
So we are very much aware of it, and we have created templates for standard forms to be sent from our departmental procurement teams to vendors for just circumstances like what you've described and others, and have required that they be distributed within a certain time frame.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Gilmore Richardson, then Councilmember Nicholas O'Rourke, Ruland down to Councilman Jamie Gautier. But I just want to say one thing, just in terms of sense of urgency. In this budget, we're spending $300 million more for FY26 than we spent for FY25. And so hopefully as part of your plan to hire folks and recruit folks, if we do maybe like a massive recruitment campaign, like Power 99, WDAS, when you turn on the TV, the city of Philadelphia is hiring. We got like a portal, right? DC has something called like DC One, where you type in, you go to this portal, and it shows like pretty much everything that the city has to offer. And so again, we're addressing the issue of poverty by making sure that these vacancies we have, we're putting people to work. That might just be something to take in consideration in terms of your budget request. So if we are doing it, maybe I missed it in the process.
We do. So OHR has a significant communications budget for this current year and hopefully for the upcoming year. And so our Philly Fully campaign, which resulted in our 40% of our increase in applications. So we're doing just that, right? So commercials, bus shelters, digital media. So it's having a significant impact, but also to your point. So we established 2 different websites over the past year. So one is work.phila.gov, which is that centralized hub, right? Where you can see everything that we're recruiting for and currently have open, but then we also have employee.phila.gov, which is our external facing intranet. And so anyone, current city employees and city residents interested in working for the city has access to that intranet site. So it talks about all of the benefits of working for the city, our comprehensive benefits packages, all of sort of kind of what that experience looks like for an employee. And so both of those websites were also launched under our communications campaign. So it's
when the last time you've been on, it's not the Breakfast Club. What's Mikey Dread?
We are working.
No, I'm gonna keep
diligently
it
working on it.
Because we gotta meet people where they at, right?
Absolutely.
So we get you a Frankie Darcell, Patty Jackson.
So we've been,
we are working very diligently in creating partnerships with all the media, WURD. If this face needs to be on
that's
media,
all.
yes,
Look,
absolutely.
we partners in this, and so we just think in different ways to get the word out.
So we
to
have
people.
this. So this year I did engage with Patty Jackson. We were on the show, and so we do have those relationships, and we'll continue those partnerships.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we get on the radio like, oh, we hiring as a city. Here's the process of how you go about doing it.
We
right?
hear you.
I just call it meeting people where they at. And again, we want to be partners in this. Majority of Member Thomas.
Just in the energy of the council president, he just inspired me. Quick question. Have we ever thought about partnering with content creators? Right, that's a whole new thing out there. So have we ever thought about partnering with content creators to be able, in just same energy as Councilmember Young, just to be a little more innovative in making sure that we're meeting people where they are? Sorry, Council President, sorry, Majority Leader Richardson. Just wondering if that's something that might be in the works.
Like if Wallow go and say, City of Philadelphia is hiring, then we probably like, the vacancies will be done tomorrow.
So I'm sorry. Yes. So a part of our communications campaign is digital media strategies, right? How to leverage the current technology. And so this current year, we're looking to kind of lean into our Instagram presence more because I think that that's a space for opportunity that we haven't. So to agree with you, we do have to meet the people where they are, and I think a lot of our recruitment efforts needs to be also on Instagram and on social media pages. Agreed.
Okay. You're welcome. Majority Leader Gilmore Richardson, then Member O'Rourke.
Great. Thank you, Council President. And I neglected to say this earlier. We also want to thank our OIT Commissioner, Melissa Scott. Prez, you mentioned the new Land Bank website, and I was actually on there this morning, and the mobile interface is even great. So we just want to thank you and your team for your work and for the excellent meeting that we had to talk about some of the work even in the recreation centers. So I just wanted to put that on the record. I didn't see you sitting up there, and I neglected to say it. So thank you very, very much. I wanted to go back to something that we have been working on since last year. My colleague, Councilmember Harity, sort of alluded to this regarding the advantages of working for the city. And so I wanted to thank Vanessa Garrett-Harley for the meeting that we had, and we continue to work through the process regarding the child care study. That was something that was important to me last year, and also paid parental leave, which is something that we had worked through in the last budget process, and I intend to work through, again, this budget process. I just want to put that on the record because that was something that I thought we achieved, that we did not achieve, that I wasn't told until the last minute. So I'm just putting that on the record. But I wanted to go to the program when I initially asked about the child care support and doing this study, I was told that initially those dollars were transitioned to set up the program Wealthly. And I will tell you, I think it's a wonderful program. I think it's a great program to ensure that our employees who need, last-minute support and help are able to get that during their journey. And it's not just for young people. It's, for, if they're a caregiver as well. So I wanted to ask, how many city employees have taken advantage of the program thus far?
So for number of signups for participation, we have 678. For cumulative days requested, 719. And then for the days used of that is 603. The average number of backup days that are being used by employees that are enrolled is about 5 days.
Okay.
And then we have some additional data that I can send separately about the types of employees that are enrolled, the age of the dependents and things like that we can share.
And they can use up to 8 days, right?
Correct.
But you can't carry over, but you can use up to 8 days per year?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then you could also self-identify a provider and then get reimbursed, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and I just found out about this yesterday, so I gotta put this on the record. I just found out, I think you know where I'm going. But the amended W-2s for those employees, I don't think anyone knew that when they signed up for the program, that the amount that the city subsidizes for them to receive the care outside of the copay is now added to their wages as a part of their wages, which may change the tax bracket for some of these employees. So I don't think people knew that when they signed up, and I don't know that you all necessarily knew that. Maybe that's coming from the program, but I need to understand that because people signed up for the program thinking once they pay the copay that would be it, that because of the benefit, it would be subsidized. But now folks are receiving, it's almost April 15, the tax deadline. They're just receiving amended W-2s, W-2Cs from the city regarding an increase in their wages, and they didn't know anything about it when they signed up for the program. So I think that because the city probably didn't know when that occurred, that the city should not hold those employees, the 678 employees that you mentioned, those folks should not be held accountable for that this year because they signed up for the program under the pretense that once they pay the copay that was it. Now, I'll give you an example. Say if they use, the average 5 days and that was $2,000, worth of subsidy that the city provided for that period. Now that $2,000, say if they made $50,000, now it says they made $52,000. But they weren't aware of that when they signed up for the program. I get it moving forward because you can tell them that, but I don't think that that's fair. And I think that that should be rectified for those employees.
I'd like to ask Marsha Green-Jones, the Deputy Over Benefits, to come up to offer comment on the question.
And I literally, this was not in my questions, I literally just found out about this yesterday. And I want to put on the record that I think it's I really think it's a great program. And I applaud the city for standing it up. But I just think that for this year, you can't hold those employees accountable because when they signed up for the program, they weren't told that those charges that the city would be covering for them would be added to their actual wage amount, where it makes it seem as if they made more money than they did,
Marsha Green-Jones, Deputy Director of Human Resources, responsible for health and welfare. Thank you very much for your question today. One of the things that the city did realize later on in the process is that because this was considered to be income, it had to be taxable income. We made a concerted effort upon us realizing this piece to actually get out W-2s, corrected W-2s to employees no later than February 19th. Okay. And we also sent out additional communications to every single employee who was enrolled in the program, notifying them of the fact, number one, that this was taxable income, and number two, that they would receive a corrected W-2 no later than February 19th.
Right. No, and I understand that, but meaning when they signed up for the program, were the 678 employees made aware that this would be taxable income? Meaning they thought, I believe, they were supposed to pay the copay, the $15 or $20, whatever it is, and then that was it. You understand what I'm saying? Because it was a benefit. I don't believe that anyone knew when they initially utilized this program that it would be added as actual income.
I completely understand your question. The issue is, more importantly, is the fact that it was income provided by the city. And we are the first city in the United States, I don't know that anyone realizes that, in the United States to actually offer this benefit.
Right.
So we're very proud of it. And one of the things that we are committed to is continuing to communicate more effectively with employees as we proceed with the program.
No, I agree. I think it's a great program. I want to underscore that. But is there a way to calculate how much that is for the city to cover that this year? And then next year moving forward, or as of now moving forward, just when people use the benefit, when city employees use the benefit to say, this is be charged as a part of your actual income. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it's a wonderful program. I really, really do. And I think it was an important benefit, you know, as people were coming back to work full-time as well. But I don't think they knew in advance that this would be a part of their income. And for some people who don't have the benefit of making certain salaries, it changes their tax bracket. And so, you know, I heard one of my colleagues, Councilman Landau, talk earlier about, you know, like pay equity and how some employees were making $37,000, I think you said, in one department, and others were making $140,000. And so for the folks making $140,000, it doesn't matter to them. But for someone who may be right on the cusp of, you know, their taxable income going from one percentage to the next, it does matter.
So I think we can, I think we can work with finance on that piece to understand the total impact to employees for this past year and then make some considerations and decisions based on that. I don't have the total number, but I completely understand the impact, and I agree with you that understanding that it is part of income may change the utilization for some employees. So
Right,
I agree.
right, and just to see how much it is, how many people, you know, were impacted in total, and then what we can do as a city to support those workers who utilize the benefit unknowingly, that this will be added to their taxable income. That's all I'm saying. And then going forward, at least they know.
Agreed.
Right, you know what I mean?
And we can follow up once we have that information. I can share that with you
Okay.
as well.
I'll submit the balance of my questions because I have a lot more, but I'll submit them for the record. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for making us number one again. Okay?
Chair recognizes Councilmember O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for joining us, Commissioner Hovey.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I want to acknowledge 12 days in, and you already happen to sit before the council. Courageous man. I thank you for your service already. I did want to say that it's important for both council and the public to know the vital role that administrative departments like procurement play in delivering public services and maintaining public goods. But the question I had has to do a little bit with prison procurement. You may not necessarily know yet. Is the person who deals with prison procurement here today? They might better come and deal with this question. No. Well, we'll shoot. Yeah, we'll try.
We could certainly get you an answer if it's not something that might.
No worries. Could you provide us with a brief overview of how your team works with other departments to evaluate new and existing vendors and contracts?
I'm sorry?
Could you provide us with a brief overview of how your team works with other departments to evaluate new and existing vendors and contracts?
Okay. So, I'm going to let my deputy talk a little bit about the existing process, and then I want to talk just very briefly about some of the initiatives that I have in mind.
LaShawna Tompkins, Deputy Commissioner. Can you ask the question one more time?
Yes, could you provide just a brief overview of how your team works with other departments to evaluate new and existing vendors and contracts?
No existing vendors, okay. So when we work with the departments on the contracts, we meet with them so we can understand what their needs are and what that assessment is. When we're looking at MWDSP participation, we direct them to look at OIO's registry. do a, just cascade the registry to see what vendors there are that can help with the needs that you are looking for. Also, when we are posting the bids in PHL contracts, they're going to post a bid, and then it's going to be visible to all of the vendors that are certified with the city. So that's how they'll be able to pull in the vendors that provide the services that they're looking for. And if they have any businesses that need to get certified with the city, we put them in contact with our vendor engagement unit. If they're a local business entity, we educate them about the local business entity certification and kind of go through all the different things that they should be proactively doing before looking to participate with the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you, Deputy. Commissioner, I'm going to ask the balance of my question because I just heard the bell. I'm going to get this out and then please respond if you can. I'd like to discuss this one contract that actually concerns me in particular for a moment. Yes Care. Yes Care, previously known as Corizon, has provided health care at the Philadelphia Department of Prisons for years. Across the country, though, they have been sued more than 1,000 times over claims of substandard care. Their current iteration appears to only have been created to allow them to pay pennies on the dollar for many of these claims. Locally, we're still seeing more deaths in our jails than in New York City. Yet the size of this contract has increased by $140 million since 2022. While we're not here to discuss one contract, it is a good reminder of the responsibility that we have to ensure that we're doing our best by our city. My question is, what range of options are available to the city when a contractor is not meeting their obligations?
So contracts can be terminated for cause or default. For cause or for convenience. Most contracts are written that way. And generally, if you're going to cancel a contract, I've actually never engaged in a cancellation for cause. And that's just because of the hurdles that arise legally and the costs associated. But you always do have the ability to cancel for convenience. But that does mean that you have to go through the sourcing and be ready for the next step to replace what's going away. And one of the things that sort of answers the first part of your question, and this one too, is kind of how we'll be handling procurements in the future. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to do here is really push the organization to a more strategic sourcing direction, where we work very collaboratively with our stakeholders, not just in a particular area, but across sort of associated needs, or where there's sort of equivalent needs across departments to leverage the community of vendors to the maximum ability, and to sort of front load contracts and get them in place before needed whenever possible. But also to look at strategic sourcing also looks at all of these questions up front in terms of what are the performance standards, what are the risks associated with this contract that could come into play, and then you sort of measure that during the process, and that measurement is typically done at the departmental level by the stakeholders who are part of a scoring team. So actually, when I came here, I was impressed that the city does do some strategic sourcing. They have contracts in place across some sectors, but that's something that we truly want to maximize. That's sort of the state of the art in procurement. People are usually put to sleep by procurement content, but that's sort of state of the art for procurement in the private and the public sector.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, some evaluation about this particular contract, like I said, not here to talk about just one, but this is very troubling to me. That folks who we are incarcerating in our city are getting substandard care by a widely known maybe bad actor is a bad word, but certainly offering substandard care. And so if there's some way to be able to shift on that and do whatever we can do to find somebody else that might be in the best benefit of us as a city to make sure that we are treating people correctly, even our citizens who are behind the wall. I did have other questions I'll submit for to be sent in, but I did have some questions around hard numbers around attrition. If you could provide the city's attrition rate for the past 3 years, and if you've seen any significant spikes in departures following the return to office policy. If you could submit that, I won't have to talk, I don't want to take up the time.
3 years? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the attrition for over the last 3 years?
Yes, attrition rates for the past 3 years, and if there were any significant spikes in departures after the return to office policy went into place. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for your
We
responses today.
certainly can provide you that information. Councilmember O'Rourke, thank you for the questions. I will also say that there is a mechanism within the procurement process for how we review performance of our contracted partners. Happy to have a more specific conversation with not only you, but of course, the impacted department to make sure that we're understanding what that impact and how that vendor has been performing relative to the concerns that you've raised.
Thank you. Hallelujah. Appreciate you. Yes.
Thank you. So as we wrap up this round, before we go out to lunch, I'm going off the queue. Councilman Rue Landau, then Jamie Gaultier, Young, and we will wrap up with the gentleman Harity. That's the line.
Thank you, Council President. Got a few more.
And I just want to just also say, just because we're on the time frame for your break, that we want to be direct and a direct response, please.
I have a few HR questions, then some OIT questions. I've got a couple procurement questions I'll just put on the record. Start with HR. I think you have all done a great job to start modernizing our hiring process. I worked for the city starting in 2008, and it was very different than it is now. There seems to be two different websites, Work at Philly and Jobs. And I think it's really important that we streamline how people are thinking about what they want to do and how they get there. So most people want a job, and when you Google that, it's going to bring you to the job site, which looks much more archaic than your work site. I love how your work site is connected into categories if you want to work in public safety or public health. When you get to the job site, you might know that you want a city job. You might know that you want an entry-level job at the law department because you might want to be a paralegal, but you don't know what to call it. Would love to hear your comments on how to fix that and how to interconnect both of these. I also want to put out two more questions while we're there. If there's any obstacles in the civil service system right now that is hampering your efforts to hire, like how long the lists last when you do create a list, to moving on to the next job. And three, I wanted to know about your successes with fair chance hiring. I also have a couple of IT questions, but can we just get quick answers on that first?
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'll answer the question about the website. So part of our request in the budget is, and I mentioned earlier, for the replatforming, what we will do is it'll allow for a more modernized look and feel, similar to what you see on the landing page and similar to what you see in the work site. Right now, the platform that our engineering team is working on doesn't allow for those functions and features, but when we re-platform, we'll be able to work with departments such as HR in order to bring that modernization, but also to organize the data so it's more user-friendly for individuals to be able to click and get to where they need to go quickly.
And I think that addresses the beginning, but then there's also a piece when you go to the actual application part, right? And that can also be a part of the barrier to the process. It's very lengthy, it's a little cumbersome. And so we are launching the new the applicant tracking system, which was funded in this year's budget. And so that is, I think, the third part, not just the landing page for work and then the jobs page, but when you're actually going through the process of applying for a position, that also needs to be streamlined. It also needs to be kind of user-friendly, right, agile. And so the new applicant tracking system in July will then cover that last piece, right? So once you engage the applicant, once they go on the website, that'll be a streamlined process. For time to hire specifically, that applicant tracking system will also assist that. So I did send the visual for time to hire, and there's a component part that is that we talk about. There's like a departmental part, the section in the beginning, in the middle, about when you're engaging candidates for interviewing. The scheduling process may take some time. That onboarding piece that isn't necessarily owned by OHR, but we're certainly responsible for the entire kind of body of work, right, from list to hire. And so the applicant tracking system will also take care of that piece as well, right? There's going to be scheduling components in there. There's going to be onboarding pieces and constant candidate communication. And so we're really looking at it holistically, not just the first thing you see when you're looking for the job, but the websites that shepherd you through the entire parts of the process. Sorry.
Thank you. Can I throw in just a couple of It's AI, you like
You
AI.
can ask the questions, and she can provide it to you in writing.
Okay, so I wanted to know the successes with fair chance hiring to get people with criminal records jobs. To OIT, can you speak to the amount of funding the city spends on automated decision-making systems or artificial intelligence, and any plans or policies you have or developing to govern the use of AI within city government departments? And then also wanted to dig down a little bit more into PHL Connected, that connects families with K-12 students to internet access. How many students or kids are signed up for PHL Connected? How do you measure the impact of that program? Do you think there'll ever be the potential to expand the program to help low-income Philadelphia residents who don't have K-12 students at home? And also, we know that internet bills strain household budgets. What's the estimated annual savings for families enrolled in PHL Connected? How does this free up income for other essentials like food and rent? For procurement, love to know how we're doing with Opal, which is probably a mix here. And also, following on Majority Leader Kathy Gilmer Richardson's great work on our contracting process, wanted to dig in deeper to hear about the RFP process in general, what changes you've made to make contracting easier, better, and faster with the City of Philadelphia. Thank you very much. I'll put them all in writing for you.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Councilman Jamie Gauthier, the next Councilmember Young, and then wrapping us up for today prior to our break will be Councilmember Jim Harity. Just please be direct with your questions as well as your response.
Thank you. My questions are for the CCME. Thank you. I'm very excited that my council district will be home to the city's new state-of-the-art forensic science center, and I'm heartened to hear that PPD will implement a comprehensive staffing plan to recruit, train, and retain highly qualified forensic scientists and support personnel, as well as to have a strong community engagement component to help Philadelphia students get interested in STEM. So my questions are, one, are we exploring a school or community college to forensic scientist pipeline? Can you speak to any plans to use these positions as a workforce development opportunity for Philadelphians in need of a stable income? And which workforce training providers do you plan to partner with, and what kind of budget will be dedicated to creating a training and hiring pipeline?
Thank you for the question, Councilwoman Gauthier. I've had some initial conversations with Managing Director Michael Garvey about the expansion and the needs within the department as they move to the new location. In fact, at the 5-year budget hearing, we followed up with some of those conversations. In particular, the needs around technicians, we've been talking to Community College of Philadelphia and adapting some of their programs that they already have in the life sciences for technicians to be relevant for the forensic technicians. The scientist level positions do require a 4-year degree, and but the issue is that there's no direct connection from the community college to those 4-year degree programs. So we've been talking about how we can get CCP connected to those local 4-year degree programs so that there's an accelerated path from CCP into those 4-year degree programs so that they can qualify for the scientist roles. But yes, there are ongoing conversations. We're not yet at what I would identify on the CCME side of the equation about what the workforce development program or budget would be, but I know that the police office has, and Michael Garvey in particular, has been working on that and putting out an RFP for training as well in facilities around in Philadelphia. So we can get more information about that for you.
I would love to see a serious effort in this area. I know that we already have amazingly skilled forensic staff, but I want this to be an opportunity for people who live here. And so, I would love to see an actual budget, an actual plan that takes people from our school system all the way to forensic scientists and all of the jobs in between to go along with the expansion of our center.
One of the specific career pathways for CCME is in the STEM area, and this is a particular passion of mine as well. And in particular, I think one of the other aspects that we've been talking with the Science Center around is CTE programs in the life sciences and in the biosciences space. So that is also something that we need to connect to this initiative as well.
Yeah, and just in closing, I think one of the things that excited me most about having the forensics lab on the corridor of science is that there are so many partners that we can engage in this training, and I hope that we take advantage of that.
I just wanted to quickly follow up on that comment. So OHR does work with there's a CTE program for biotechnology, and so we use that for the fingerprinting. So that's not the title that requires the 4-year degree, but perhaps we can bridge that particular cohort with a future CCME program, to your point, right? So that they can go from that program that requires high school into a 4-year degree program, perhaps through CCME as a conduit.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Jeffrey J. Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just 2 quick questions. One's for procurement. I met with a vendor of, let's just say, like swag gear, right? And we know some numbers. And that vendor, a local minority vendor here in Philadelphia, cannot compete with some of the applicants who apply for this RFP who are, have direct connects to China, essentially, right? So what are we doing about, or what can we do to provide those more opportunities for local vendors when we have to compete in this global market, particularly for items like swag items that, every department uses, and particularly in the industry that can provide jobs here locally?
So we give a preference to local businesses currently, which advantages them in the bidding process. We still have to follow the bidding rules, but beyond that, I'm going to turn it over to LaShonda.
Deputy Commissioner Tompkins, so we have the LBPI initiative, which increases the threshold for LBE businesses. We also have the LBE preference that Commissioner Hovey spoke about. And also there are micro and SOPs, like small order purchases, that these LBEs can take advantage of as well, which are more of an informal bidding process, which will allow them to work with departments, build a relationship, and also just do more business with the city through those smaller projects and kind of work their way up.
So this one vendor in particular had a relationship with the city, had previous contracts with the city. But again, because of how things are shifting globally, the opportunity to compete just wasn't there. And so what are we, or how can we increase those chances? Because I looked at the city's awards for that particular type of contract, and none of them were local. None of them were local. So I was just trying to figure out what can we do to increase that participation in those types of industries where we know that there are people in Philadelphia that can fulfill those roles.
One of the things that I saw in my last venture was that as soon as we raised it several times over the last few years, once we raised the small purchase, or here the micro purchase threshold, we saw an associated level of participation of smaller businesses because things could be more easily directed in terms of awards to local businesses or small businesses. In that case, it was small businesses.
So what I think, Mr. President, what I'll do is I'm going to share the information that I have in writing with you all, a couple questions that I have, see if you can answer that on how we can allow more opportunities for our local businesses to compete for city business rather than some business that is based in San Francisco but really is based out of China.
Councilmember, appreciate the question and the sentiment. I will say that this year, for the first time during our kind of budget preparation process, we embedded procurement in the departmental conversations, right? And so what this allows us to do, because similar to OHR, we do have a federated model for procurement, and you have departments with their own procurement teams. But what embedding procurement, big P, the procurement department, into those conversations allows us to do is to identify those opportunities that maybe the departments are not aware of, right? So there's a component of education to this, not necessarily for the vendor, but for our departmental partners. And we're working very hard to embed ourselves in those conversations about procurement planning, contract planning, so that we can always lift up the opportunities for our local businesses and other businesses that are registered in the city.
Thank you. Just one more question, just about the Bureau of Administrative Adjudication. I saw in the 5-year plan, the goal was 120 days for some of these, to review some of these cases, but FY25, it was 90 days. So why are we taking longer to review these cases than, why we have a goal of a longer review period than a previous year?
So we are trying to, and I will ask Melissa Andre to come up to speak to the question, but what we've seen is a significant increase in some areas that are under the purview of the Office of Administrative Review. Such significant uptick that we do have to build in more time to hear appeals and so on. So while we appreciate and agree that we don't want that time limit to go up, we are also being very intentional about putting a specific performance metric to even exponentially increase the number of hearings that we're experiencing in that area.
But similar to the line of questioning from Councilwoman Gautier, folks, when they file an appeal, they don't know that their appeal is filed, particularly for like a parking ticket, right? They don't know it's filed, they don't hear anything, everything is just online, they don't get to talk to a person, they submit it, and 6 months later they get a decision, right? So, like, how can we streamline that process a little bit?
So I think it really depends on what kind of hearing you're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry, again, my name is Melissa Andre, Executive Director, Office of Administrative Review. So I really think it depends on what type of hearing you're talking about and what kind of appeal you filed. So if you filed an appeal with the parking authority for your red light or your speed camera ticket, you're getting notification that you filed the ticket and the time frame it's supposed to take. If you are requesting an in-person hearing, then those time frames are much shorter than an online review because of the backlog of the online reviews. So I think if you could provide me with maybe a specific example of the type of hearing you're talking about?
It's the hearings that the BAA would adjudicate, essentially, not the red light tickets, not those, not the camera tickets, we get that. These are regular parking tickets that folks would get.
Yes, so I think because of the increase of just the parking tickets that are being issued, it caused us a backlog. We had kind of come up to a really good place after COVID because there was so many, there wasn't any parking tickets being issued, but I think there's been a significant increase in parking tickets, and that caused a delay. And so now we're trying to get ourselves back up to speed. And I think the problem occurs when the online ticket requests are being delayed because we're being inflooded, the boot and tows have gone up. So there are two different types of hearings. And so if you walk into the BAA today, you'll get a hearing on demand because your car has been booted or towed. But that has taken that has been prioritized over the people with just a regular parking ticket because of the influx of the boot and the tows that we are experiencing. So we're trying to level it out. We've hired approximately 6 new hearing officers this past year, and we're getting to a better place.
Thank you very much. Member Hardy, take us home, sir.
Council President, I'm going to make it real fast. You can give me all these in writing, and I'm going to read them off pretty quick, though. Your testimony states that, and this is procurement, I'm sorry. Your testimony states the department aims to reduce the average bidding timeline from 225 days in 2024 to 200 days in 2026. The Public Works bidding process, according to the testimony, currently takes an average of 140 days with the FY 2026 target remaining 140 days. How does the timeline compare to similar programs in other cities? Are there any planned efficiencies that could further reduce the time frame, especially for public works like rebuild, so you know where I'm getting at? And does this timeline lead to a disparity between the initial project cost and the final cost?
What was the last one?
Okay, does the timeline lead to a disparity between the initial project cost and the final cost? And that's especially relating to rebuild. And that'll be that for me, my brother.
Thank you. Do you want to give a brief response as well as provide the information in writing?
Sure. So comparing to other cities or agencies, the timelines are pretty consistent with traditional public procurement agencies that haven't gone through any sort of modernization and upgrade. Are there initiatives to decrease the cycle time? There will be. Through the implementation of Opal, we'll be looking also at our business processes to see if we can drive that down. And also, as I spoke to before, the more we engage in strategic sourcing, the more we have pre-positioned contracts, and some of those can even play in the space of public works when it comes to the engineering, design, and planning. Okay. It gets a little more difficult in the actual work, the construction type work, but that can be addressed.
Yeah, I was in the construction business my whole life.
And then the last one, does it create a cost disparity? Absolutely. The longer the solicitation period, that is a big driver to cost in both actuality at the end, but also cost built into the bid price due to perceived risk.
Okay, I'm not gonna, just gonna.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We want to thank all of you for your testimony. We will stand in recess until 2 p.m. and I'll ask everyone if we could be back to start at exactly 2 p.m. so we can get 2 full rounds in. And I'd rather get, before everybody start getting up, this is important, I'd rather get responses on the record as opposed to written responses. And so the only way we can do that if we start on time, and then you can ask as many questions as you can within your time frame as opposed to getting the information back in writing. So we want to be transparent in this budgetary process. Thank you very much, everyone. See you at 2.